Chapter 1289. Chased out at this moment, Second Master Duan and Dou Fukong also ran over with their men and happened to hear these words. Second Master Duan immediately ran to help Duan one up. He turned around and wanted to question Gu Yundong, but the servant beside him had already explained the matter in a few sentences. Second Master Duan's words were instantly stopped. However, Dou Fukong became even angrier when he heard this. He suddenly turned to look at Second Master Duan and his daughter. Initially, on account of our past friendship, I politely asked you to leave. I didn't expect you to be so unreasonable. You even threatened Mrs. Shao's reputation with your nonsense. Looks like I don't have to be polite to you anymore. Men, chase the two of them out. Yes. The servants immediately came forward and pulled the father and daughter out. They did not seem to be polite at all. Second Master Duan immediately panicked. Young Master Dou, we were wrong. I'll get Wenner to apologize to Mrs. Shao now. He pressed Duan Wen's head towards Gu Yundong, but Gu Yundong turned around and left. Dou Fukong waved his hand and the father and daughter were chased out of the Dou residence. There had always been people watching outside the Dou residence. After all, General Dou had been the center of discussion in the entire Wanqing prefecture these days. Therefore, as soon as the father and daughter were chased out, many people immediately saw them. The onlookers were immediately stunned. What happened? Isn't Second Master Duan very close to the Dou family? They were thrown out so rudely. Are these two families going to fall out? Didn't everybody say that young Master Dou is going to be engaged to Second Miss Duan? Serves him right. During this period of time, Second Master Duan has the Dou family backing him up. I don't know how proud he is. He thinks that he's superior to others and acts arrogantly. He's just a merchant without much ability. He really thinks of himself as young Master Dou's father-in-law. In that case, the Dou family is no longer Second Master Duan's backer. The Duan family's eldest young Master Duan is missing, and Second Master Duan no longer has the support of the Dou family. Wouldn't the Duan family be finished in the future? These words immediately made the expressions of the people beside him change slightly. Many people had already rushed back to tell their masters. Second Master Duan and Duan Wen originally wanted to plead for leniency and ask the concierge to let them in, but the surrounding pointed fingers were really unbearable. They could only bury their heads and leave in a hurry. Not long after, the news of Second Master Duan and his daughter being chased out of the Dou family spread to more than half of the merchant families in the prefectural city. Many people cheered and secretly rejoiced. They secretly had designs on the Duan family. The Duan family's shopkeepers were even more worried. However, everyone was still watching. Who knew if the Duan family and the Dou family had really fallen out? What if it was just a misunderstanding? Once they took action, the Dou family might start supporting the Duan family again. Someone wanted to enter the Duan residence to inquire about the situation, but Second Master Duan's family had been holed up in the residence ever since. When Gu Yundong returned, the Yu family had already heard the news. Eugene ran to her to ask. However, Gu Yundong laughed and looked mysterious. Don't worry. The Duan family won't fall into chaos in a few days. Let's just focus on our business and ignore the rumors outside. All right. With Gu Yundong's words, Eugene stopped paying attention. But later, Gu Yundong sent Jilan and Huilan to the Dou residence. Duan Qian was recuperating in the Dou residence, and Duan Wan was staying in the Dou residence. Jilan and Huilan could also help out in the Dou residence. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1290. Appearance 3 days later, some restless people in the prefecture finally could not take it anymore. After discovering that Second Master Duan did not have any dealings with the Dou family, they wanted to take action against the Duan family's business. However, no one expected that the business that was already full of loopholes because of Second Master Duan would now be watertight, so they could not find any mistakes. The Duan family's shopkeepers, who had been in a panic a few days ago, had become energetic these few days. Everyone was puzzled. At that moment, Duan Qian finished reading the letter that shopkeeper Luo had sent and smiled slightly. Then, he asked Duan Wan to bring him a brush and paper and started a new round of arrangements. Now, when Duan Qian did these things again, he would no longer avoid Duan Wan. This incident had also taught him a deep lesson. He knew that he could not blindly protect his sister and dote on her. He was not powerful enough to protect her for the rest of his life. Only when he became stronger could he be fearless. He had seen this from Yundong. Moreover, from what Duan once said, she wanted to try doing business herself, so Duan Qian had started to teach her some basic knowledge step by step. After writing the letter and sending it out, Duan Qian heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to continue teaching Duan Wan some business tactics, he saw Dou Fukong enter excitedly. As soon as he entered, he said in a low voice, "The soldiers guarding the city saw a man who looked like Liangzi enter the city." Duan Qian looked up. "Really?" "Yes, I'm just here to tell you that you haven't fully recovered yet, so it's not convenient for you to show your face. Rest well first. Don't worry, Qingyuan and I will definitely not let these people escape again." Although Duan Qian wanted to go out and help, he was indeed powerless. Moreover, if Liangzi saw that he was safe and sound, he would probably destroy Dou Fukong and the others' deployment. Therefore, he could only say with a serious expression, "Be careful." Dou Fukong nodded. After glancing at Duan Wan, he turned around and strode away. He went to the provision store and then came out with Shao Qingyuan to where Liangzi was now. It was an inconspicuous small courtyard in an alley not far from the Duan mansion. The courtyard was not big. According to the neighbors, this courtyard had just been bought not long ago. However, after buying it, no one had lived in it until today. Shao Qingyuan and Dou Fukong were sitting at a noodle stall not far from the courtyard. They ordered 2 bowls of soup noodles and chatted as they ate. "Are you sure he went in? Were the people you sent to follow him discovered?" Shao Qingyuan asked. "Yes, the taste of this noodles was not bad. He would bring a bowl back for his wife later. Don't worry, the person following him is my father's guard. He's good at tracking and investigation. It's overkill to let him follow Liangzi." Shao Qingyuan was relieved to hear that. "Only Liangzi is here now. I wonder if Mrs. Zhua and the others will come. Let's wait for 2 days." After eating the noodles, Shao Qingyuan ordered another bowl to go, put down the copper coins, and left. For the rest of the time, Dou Fukong sent people to keep an eye on the small courtyard. Liangzi had entered and left a few times. There were even a few times when he walked towards the Duan mansion. As expected, their target was the Duan mansion. On the 3rd day, Dou Fukong received news that Mrs. Zhua had also entered the city and was living in the small courtyard with her subordinates. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1291. Smashing the Duan family's shop. However, Mrs. Zhua didn't act. She did not go out for 2 consecutive days after she arrived. This made Dou Fukong a little confused. He sat in the backyard of the provision store and looked at Shao Qingyuan and Yundong. "Do you think they're going to attack the Duan family?" "Most likely." Yundong felt that it must be. Shao Qingyuan poured a cup of tea for Dou Fukong and said, "I think it's very likely that Mrs. Zhua is scared." "Scared? Of whom?" "Your father," Shao Qingyuan and Yundong said in unison. Dou Fukong wasn't stupid. With this reminder, he instantly came to a realization. "You're saying that Mrs. Zhua has also heard a lot of rumors these past few days that the Dou family is the Duan family's backer, making them worry. Even when I chased Second Master Duan and the others out of the Duan residence back then, it didn't dispel their wariness. They don't believe that we don't get along with the Duan family?" "Most likely." "Then what should we do?" Although Dou Fukong really wanted his father to arrest Mrs. Zhua and the others and throw them into jail, Mrs. Zhua was a cautious person and didn't leave any evidence behind. Even his father couldn't arrest her for no reason. Knowing that they were going to make a move on the Duan family, Dou Fukong had been waiting. Although it was not good to use Second Master Duan as bait, this was the most suitable method at the moment. However, Mrs. Zhua had to do something about it. "Put on a show for them," Shao Qingyuan said. Dou Fukong's eyes lit up. "Tell me about it? You'll get someone to destroy the Duan family's shop." "Dou Fukong, are you serious? Do you have to be so cruel?" He looked at Shao Qingyuan in disagreement. After a while, he suddenly stood up and walked out. "I'll remind Duan Qian first." He also had to tell Duan Qian that this was Shao Qingyuan's idea and definitely not his. Unexpectedly, Duan Qian agreed. Thus, on the 2nd day, Something big happened in the Duan family's shop in the prefecture capital. A group of soldiers barged into the silk shop in the east of the city and threw the fabric in the shop to the ground. The shopkeeper wanted to stop them, but he did not expect to be immediately handcuffed and taken away. Shopkeeper Lin immediately exclaimed loudly, "What are you doing? Why are you arresting me? Why do you think you know what you've done?" The leader snorted. Shopkeeper Lin was stunned. He did not know what he had done. He struggled with all his might. You can't arrest me. Our boss is Second Master Duan. Second Master Duan and your young Master Do are old acquaintances." The soldier hit Shopkeeper Lin's head. "Don't use the flag to harm our young master again. If you have the ability, let the person surnamed Duan come. Our young master can settle all the old and new scores with him. Let's see if he dares to walk out of the Duan manor and show his face." Shopkeeper Lin's face instantly turned pale. In that case, the rumors were true. Did Second Master Duan really fall out with young Master Do? However, he was still indignant. Seeing that he was about to be taken away, he hurriedly turned to the shop assistant and said, "Hurry up and find Second Master Duan. Go." The shop assistant lowered his head slightly and a glint flashed across his eyes. He responded and quickly ran out. The soldiers sneered disapprovingly and left with Shopkeeper Lin. The two people at the back closed the shop and sealed it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1292. Killing two birds with one stone. In the tea house opposite the silk shop, Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were eating melon seeds while watching the commotion. They glanced around and quickly found a few people turning around and running away. There were also two people who followed the shop assistant who had just left, as if they wanted to see if the shop assistant had really gone to the Duan family to look for Second Master Duan and if Second Master Duan would really save Shopkeeper Lin. Gu Yundong took a sip of tea before shaking her head and sighing. "This is killing two birds with one stone." "Yes." Shao Qingyuan nodded. He knew that Duan Qian would definitely agree to his suggestion. Shopkeeper Lin was the first person Duan Wan thought of to be trustworthy. Duan Qian had once saved his life. Unfortunately, this person was bewitched by beauty and had already turned to Second Master Duan's side. He even helped Second Master Duan do many things. Therefore, the first shop Duan Qian wanted to smash was the silk shop managed by Shopkeeper Lin. On the other hand, the shop assistant was on Duan Qian's side. After this matter was over, the assistant's position could probably be promoted. Of course, besides this silk shop, the other two shops that Do Fukong had gotten someone to smash also belonged to Second Master Duan's men. This way, not only could he help Duan Qian get rid of these traitors, but he could also announce to everyone that the Do and Duan families had completely fallen out and the Duan family would no longer support Second Master Duan. As for Second Master Duan, he definitely did not dare to show his face. Sure enough, someone quickly ran back and announced it loudly. "You don't know this, but just now, an assistant from the silk shop ran to the Duan family and said that he wanted to look for Second Master Duan. The guard went in for a while before coming out. Then, he said that Second Master Duan is bedridden and can't get up now. He asked Shopkeeper Lin to think of a way himself." Just now, the Duan family's shop in the south of the city was also destroyed. The shopkeeper was taken away. F***CK. Not only did young Master Do and the Duan family not become in-laws, but they even formed a deep hatred. The Duan family is doomed. What did Second Master Duan do to make the Do family so angry? Yes, what did Second Master Duan do? Even Second Master Duan himself could not understand it. He had lied to the Do family to take credit. However, at least he had contributed a little back then. Even if he did not contribute, he had worked hard. Even if they could not become in-laws, they still had friendship. Was there a need to be so ruthless? He did not cause any losses to the Do family. Moreover, it was eldest brother who helped them back then. The Duan family's shops were originally managed by eldest brother. Wasn't the Do family afraid that eldest brother would rest with remaining grievances underground if they were so ruthless? However, Second Master Duan did not dare to ask these questions. He did not even dare to step out of the house. Not only him, even Second Aunt Duan and Duan Wen did not dare to go out. The Duan family's shopkeepers were also trembling in fear, afraid that they would be the next person to be captured. However, when they went to the Duan family to ask for ideas, the Duan family refused to see them. Fortunately, after capturing 3 shopkeepers, those people stopped. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. However, immediately after, those merchants who coveted the Duan family began to exert their strength. Even though Duan Qian was behind it and he could not show his face after all and his deterrence was much lower, the Duan family's shops more or less suffered some losses. Duan Qian didn't mind. He could still bear this loss. As long as he dealt with Mrs. Zhua and the others, he could still earn back the money with his ability. Fortunately, the news came soon. Mrs. Zhua and the others couldn't wait any longer and started to take action. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1293. Duan Wen and her daughter are caught. Although the Duan family did not go out, it did not mean that the people outside could not enter. The Duan family claimed that they were sick, but they were not really bedridden. Duan Wen's temper had become exceptionally bad after she was slapped by Gu Yundong and chased out of the house by Dou Fukong. Second Aunt Duan saw that her daughter couldn't just keep smashing stuff in the room all day, so she could only take her for a walk in the courtyard to take care of flowers and adjust her mood. Then, Duan Wen raised her favorite words until they were half dead. Duan Wen was so angry that she wanted to tear off the flower branches, but Second Aunt Duan stopped her. She originally wanted to ask the gardener in the residence to fix it, but she did not expect the gardener to be sick at this time. Therefore, she could only secretly call someone from outside to try to save the pots of flowers. Mrs. Zhua entered the Duan mansion dressed as a gardener. Second Aunt Duan could not control what happened after that. In short, when she woke up, she and her daughter were already locked in a dark house. The surroundings were dark and terrifying. Second Aunt Duan quickly pushed Duan Wen awake and moved her tied hands. Her face was pale. When Duan Wen woke up and looked up, she happened to see a memorial tablet placed on the table in front of her. On it was written, "The spirit position of Zhua Hong, the deceased husband." "Ah!" Duan Wen screamed and suddenly retreated, knocking Second Aunt Duan to the ground. Second Aunt Duan snorted in pain and quickly scolded, "Shut up." However, it was too late. The door was opened and a man with a sullen expression walked in. Their voices stopped abruptly, and they looked up at him with trepidation. Who are you? Why did you capture us? Do you want silver? How much do you want? I'll give it to you. We'll give it all to you. Let us go." Liangzi looked down at them from above. His indifference made them tremble with fear. He glanced at them and said, "Don't worry, I'll reunite your family. Before that, do you see the memorial tablet over there? Kowtow and admit your mistake. You owe him that." With that, Liangzi closed the door. The mother and daughter in the house immediately shouted, but it was useless. They were already outside the city. Other than this manor, there was no family here. Liangzi went out to see Mrs. Zhua. Mrs. Zhua took a few steps forward and asked, "How's Second Master Duan?" "On the way here." Liangzi hesitated for a moment before saying, "But the second young master of the Duan family went out and we couldn't catch him." Mrs. Zhua frowned, but she soon relaxed. "Forget it. Let's reunite the family of 3 first. Second young Master Duan will join them later." As she spoke, Mrs. Zhua's eyes flashed with madness and bloodlust. Just wait. She would deal with the murderers who killed her husband one by one. So what if it was the Duan family? So what if they could do whatever they wanted in Wanqing Prefecture? In the end, wouldn't they still end up like this? Not only the Duan family, but also the people who had participated in it. She would take revenge. Unfortunately, the helper the Duan family had invited had already left the Qingyuan Prefecture. Otherwise, she wouldn't have targeted the Duan family first. "Have you found Duan Wan yet?" Liangzi lowered his head and said with some self-blame. "It said that she set fire to the Duan family previously and disappeared without a trace. No one knows her whereabouts. The Duan family searched for many days but couldn't find her." Mrs. Zhua smirked. "She's good at hiding. Continue to send people to keep an eye on her. Find her even if she's hiding in a rat hole." "Yes, ma'am." As he spoke, the sound of wheels rolling could be heard from outside. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1294. You implicated us. Liangzi opened the door and saw two people carrying a sack in. Second Master Duan was finally here. Liangzi led the two of them to the room where the Duan family's mother and daughter were imprisoned. The two people in the room had already lost their strength from shouting. At this moment, when they heard footsteps, they immediately shrank in a corner in fear and looked at Liangzi in horror. Liangzi waved his hand, and the two people carrying the sack behind him threw it to the ground. A familiar groan came from inside. The sack was untied, revealing Second Master Duan's bruised face. Second Aunt Duan screamed and quickly moved forward. Master, what's wrong? Why are you here too? Second Master Duan coughed twice. When he saw the mother and daughter, he could not help but widen his eyes. Why are you here too? Congratulations, Second Master Duan, on reuniting with your wife and daughter. A low female voice came from outside the door. The three people in the room looked up in unison and saw a short woman in men's clothes walk in. She was clearly smiling, but her eyes were ice-cold, looking especially frightening. The three members of the Duan family quickly huddled together. They looked at the woman in front of them in surprise and asked with a trembling voice, Why did you capture us? Who sent you? Is it General Dou? Mrs. Wa couldn't help but snicker. You think so highly of yourself. If General Dou wants to arrest you, why go through so much trouble? Then who are you? Mrs. was straightened up and looked to the side. Her cold gaze softened instantly, and there seemed to be thousands of emotions in her eyes. The three members of the Duan family followed her gaze and saw a memorial tablet. Still looking at the tablet, Mrs. Wa asked softly, Do you remember him? Second Master Duan looked at the name carefully. The next moment, his expression changed drastically. He is. It seems that you do remember. Second Master Duan shook his head desperately. He originally did not remember this name. It was just that General Dou had recently appeared in the prefectural city. When he mentioned what happened back then, he recalled it again. Naturally, he also thought of the name of the leader of the human traffickers. The man's name was Hong. Her deceased husband? So this woman. Second Master Duan suddenly gasped. You want to avenge him? You're finally smarter. Mrs. Wa smiled. My late husband has been waiting underground for more than 10 years. He must be very happy to see me kill his enemy. Second Master Duan broke out in a cold sweat. He looked around and saw that everyone was on Mrs. Wa's side. Knowing that it was hopeless for him to escape, he could only admit his mistake and beg for mercy. Mrs. Wa, I was wrong. Please spare me. Please let us go. I can use other things to compensate you. How about silver? The Duan family has silver, and I'll give you half. No, I'll give you everything in the Duan family. I'll give you everything, okay? Please let us go. Please, Mrs. Wa, we're innocent. Even if my husband did something wrong, what does it have to do with us? We don't know anything. We're innocent. When Second Master Duan heard this, his expression instantly changed. He pounced over and hit Second Aunt Duan. What are you saying? I wanted to use all the Duan family's assets to exchange for the lives of our family, but you can't wait to cut ties. Second Aunt Duan's hands were tied and she could not fight back. Duan Wan, who was at the side, bumped her head against Second Master Duan. Mother is right. You implicated us. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1295. An easier death. Seeing the family of three biting each other, Mrs. Wa lowered her head and chuckled. No wonder the Duan family fell into Duan Qian's hands. Duan Qian didn't even beg for mercy when he was chased by us to the point of jumping into the river. You guys, on the other hand, have internal strife before I even said what to do. Second Master Duan and the other two suddenly stopped. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said loudly, Yes, Duan Qian. What happened more than 10 years ago was done by my brother. It was Duan Qian's father who was investigating your husband. He was also the one who sent me a letter to find someone to save him. There's also young Master Dou. Second Aunt Duan immediately shouted. At that time, young Master Dou was kidnapped by your husband. He was the first to escape and even reported it to the officials. Your husband was sentenced to be beheaded because of the Dou family. Duan also shouted from the side, "Yes, yes, yes." At that time, Duan accidentally saw young Master Do. Young Master Do asked her for help, so she ran back to look for my uncle and asked him to report it to the officials. The family spoke at once, spitting out all the credit they had claimed. Mrs. Zhua and Liangzi's expressions changed slightly, as if they hadn't expected this to be the truth. Previously, they had investigated the Duan family, and knew that it was because of the Duan family's interference that her husband was caught and beheaded. Therefore, she hated the Duan family to the core and wanted everyone in the Duan family to die. However, she did not know that the person who had played a big role was actually Duan, whom they had yet to find. Also, young Master Do, the Do family. Mrs. Zhua's expression instantly turned ugly. She had already lost several people because of Duan Qian. If she went against the Do family, she would have no chance of winning at all. Liangzi quickly saw through her thoughts and immediately said softly, "Madam, there's still a long way to go. We can deal with the Duan family first and then make plans about the Do family." Mrs. Zhua closed her eyes and took a deep breath. That's right. She had endured it for so many years. She could just do it for a while longer. When she opened her eyes again, Mrs. Zhua's gaze turned sharp. Second Master Duan and the other two were shocked when they saw this. It was over. She still did not intend to let them off. "Mrs. Zhua, every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. Although my brother and sister-in-law are dead, Duan and young Master Do are still alive. Go find them and let us go." Mrs. Zhua snickered. "Let you go? You've seen what I look like and know our past. Do you think we'll let you go? That's ridiculous." As she spoke, she no longer paid attention to the three of them. She turned around and called out, "Liangzi." "Yes." Liangzi turned around and left. After a while, another man walked in with a porcelain bottle in his hand and handed it to Mrs. Zhua. Mrs. Zhua said, "I don't want to dirty my hands, and I don't want my late husband to see you bleeding from your 7 orifices, lest you scare him. So, I've picked an easier way for you to die." She shook the bottle in her hand. "I specially prepared this medicine for you. After taking it, your stomach will hurt unbearably. You will feel countless poisonous insects biting your bodies. There will be fire burning your skin and needles stabbing your fingers. After an hour of pain, you will stop breathing. But don't worry, you won't bleed from your 7 orifices. You will still be very clean when you die." How could this be called an easy death? After hearing this, the 3 members of the Duan family felt the world spin. Despair that they had never felt before surged in their hearts. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1296. A Step Too Late Misses. Zhua walked up and pulled Second Aunt Duan over. Second Aunt Duan screamed, "Ah, let go of me, let go, don't touch me." Mrs. Zhua punched her in the stomach. Second Aunt Duan opened her mouth in pain. The next moment, a small black pill was stuffed into her mouth. Mrs. Zhua put some force into it and she swallowed it. Second Master Duan and Duan gasped. They wanted to cry and curse loudly, but at this moment, when they looked at Second Aunt Duan who was lying on the ground and struggling in pain, their throats seemed to be blocked by someone and they could not make a sound. Mrs. Zhua walked up to Duan. The latter's eyes widened in horror and tears streamed down her face. "No, don't kill me. Please don't kill me." Mrs. Zhua was expressionless. In order to prevent her from struggling, she punched her in the stomach and stuffed the medicine in when she wasn't paying attention. In the end, only Second Master Duan was left. Seeing that his daughter and wife had been poisoned, Second Master Duan's eyes turned red. He struggled to stand up and wanted to run out. The man next to Mrs. Zhua kicked him and knocked him to the ground. Mrs. Zhua walked up and stuffed the medicine into his mouth without saying anything else. Then she kicked him hard and said to the person beside her, "Watch them. When they die, dig a pit in the backyard and bury them." "Yes." Mrs. Zhua took out a handkerchief and wiped her hands before leaving the house. She looked up at the sunlight above her head and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Finally, she had taken half of her revenge. "Ha ha ha, husband, just wait and see. They'll be there to accompany you soon. Don't worry, I'll send all the people who killed you down. Don't be anxious. Wait a little longer." With that, she closed her eyes and exhaled in enjoyment. The next moment, She suddenly opened her eyes. However, at this moment, a light suddenly flashed across the corner of her eye, as if something had flown past. Mrs. Wu turned around and saw two figures jumping down from the wall. Lin Junlan, you actually dared to barge into the Duan residence and kidnap Second Master Duan's family of 3. Now, you even killed them to silence them and committed a heinous crime. You're simply lawless. Don't even think about escaping today. After saying that, the two of them rushed over to Mrs. Wu. Mrs. Wu's face changed slightly and she stepped back. She retreated back into the house and moved the memorial tablet away from the table. She touched something, and a tunnel quickly appeared in front of her. Without another word, Mrs. Wu ran into the tunnel. However, as soon as she reached the bottom of the stairs, the tiles above her cracked and a crossbow bolt fell straight down. Mrs. Wu's pupils constricted and she stepped back, but she was still shot in the arm. The tablet in her arms fell to the ground with a thud. Blood welled up in Mrs. Wu's eyes and she reached out to pick it up. Yundong jumped down from the roof and landed on the table with a bang. Then, she reached out to grab Mrs. Wu. Mrs. Wu was actually quite skilled, especially since Yundong had caused her to drop her husband's tablet on the ground. She was extremely angry and moved a little faster. Yundong could not do anything to her for a moment. Fortunately, Dou Fukang's experts quickly dealt with the miscellaneous soldiers outside. They pushed open the door and came in, working together to take Mrs. Wu down. Mrs. Wu closed her eyes and heaved a sigh of relief. Suddenly, she smiled. Unfortunately, you're a step too late. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1297. Still wanting retaliate against Yundong as she spoke, Mrs. Wu looked at the 3 people on the ground. Dou Fukang's expression changed slightly. He hurriedly instructed his subordinates, carry the 3 of them away first and find a doctor to treat them. Yes. Soon, someone hurriedly took the 3 Duan family members away. Mrs. Wu was still smiling. What's the point of taking them away now? There's no antidote for my poison. Even if you want to make an antidote now, they won't be able to stay alive for that. Ha ha. Dou Fukang's face was ashen. Lin Junlan, now that the evidence of your murder is conclusive, what else is there to say? There's nothing to say. Dou Fukang frowned. Take her away. His subordinates immediately grabbed Mrs. Wu and left, including the rest of the people in the manor. They were all captured in one fell swoop. However, one person was missing. Mrs. Wu was relieved to see that he was not among them. She smiled as if nothing had happened to her. But when she was pressed into the carriage, she could not control herself. She glared fiercely at Yundong. Just you wait. Yundong put away the crossbow and looked at her. She smiled and said, wait for what? For you to take revenge on me? Do you think you still have a chance to come out after entering the prison? Do you think I can't get out? Young lady, you'll regret what you did today. With that, Mrs. Wu was pushed into the carriage. The carriage rode all the way to the prefectural city until it reached the prison. Mrs. Wu staggered when she was pushed into the cell, but she soon regained her balance and snorted. Then, she turned around and looked at the people who had grabbed her and treated her rudely. She looked like she wanted to remember everyone and not let anyone off in the future. Yundong was extremely disgusted by her gaze. Thinking of how she and her dead husband had never done anything good and specialized in child trafficking, she wished she could beat her up. At the thought of this, she really did it. Dou Fukang was shocked. He pulled Yundong, who was rolling up her sleeves and about to enter the cell, back. You calm down. Now is not the time for you to make a move. Seeing that Yundong was still dissatisfied, he said softly, don't worry, don't worry. There will be torture during the interrogation later. I promise to make her suffer. Of course. Dou Fukang hated this woman too. More than 10 years ago, he was also a victim. When he was locked up at that time, he had seen with his own eyes the scene of children trying to escape and being caught and beaten to death. Therefore, his senses were even clearer. He wished he could replay what those children had suffered on them. Dou Fukang felt that it was not too much to torture such people. However, even though her voice was low, Mrs. Wu still heard her. She smiled. Torture? Sure, I'll wait. Yundong narrowed her eyes. Why are you so arrogant? Do you think you can get out of this prison? Do you think someone will save you? It's none of your business whether anyone saves me or not. Then is it his business? Another unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded from not far away. Gu Yundong and Do Fukong were overjoyed and turned around. Mrs. Wu looked up too. Against the light, she couldn't see who it was. When she narrowed her eyes and wanted to see clearly again, someone was suddenly thrown at her feet. Mrs. Wu lowered her head involuntarily. When she saw who it was, her expression changed drastically. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1298. Unable to escape her confident and disapproving expression just now completely collapsed at this moment. Mrs. was squatted down in shock and flipped the man over. When she saw him clearly, she gasped. Liangzi, you didn't escape? Liangzi panted and looked in Shao Qingyuan's direction. His voice was intermittent. There are a few of them. Shao Qingyuan stood beside Gu Yundong and looked down at Mrs. Wu. He said, "Are you counting on him to save you? I know that this subordinate of yours is good at digging holes, so you thought that at night, he could also dig into the prison to save you. Although this prison is not easy to break into, I broke his limbs just to be safe." Mrs. Wu's pupils constricted as she stared in disbelief at Liangzi, who couldn't get up at all. Gu Yundong smiled. "Madam, are you still planning to take revenge on me? I'll wait for you." Do Fukong laughed out loud and shot a look at the people behind him. "Do it." The man immediately went forward with a bowl in his hand. The bowl was filled with water. One of them grabbed Mrs. Wu and the other poured the water into her mouth. Mrs. Wu was no match for them at all. No matter how hard she struggled, it was useless. She drank more than half a bowl of water. Not long after, she felt weak all over. Do Fukong shrugged and said, "I see that you are very confident. I'm afraid that you have more tricks up your sleeve, so I'll add another layer of protection. I'm very good to you, right?" "You?" Mrs. Wu glared at them with bloodshot eyes. Unfortunately, Gu Yundong and the other two turned around and left. Liangzi was also dragged away and sent to the cell where the male prisoners were imprisoned. Mrs. Wu clung to the railing, but she didn't have much strength left. Soon she fell to the ground again and could only shout at their backs, "Come back! Come back!" Gu Yundong and the other two turned a deaf ear. When they walked out of the cell, the three of them let out a sigh of relief. "We've finally caught this malignant tumor. It's all thanks to your help today," Do Fukong said. Shao Qingyuan shook his head and looked at the guards behind Do Fukong. "It's all thanks to Lord Do." To be honest, even if the few of them joined forces and considered every possibility, the lack of manpower was the greatest disadvantage. General Do was short of manpower, but he had given them a few capable guards. Otherwise, Shao Qingyuan would not have been able to pursue Liangzi so smoothly. This Liangzi was indeed very skilled. No wonder Duan Qian had suffered such a huge loss at his hands even with his guards. Moreover, Liangzi was good at digging holes. If not for the fact that he was not in Qingyuan Prefecture more than 10 years ago and that Zhuo Hong was beheaded not long after he was captured, the man would probably have been saved. "I'll leave the interrogation to you," Shao Qingyuan said. Do Fukong raised his eyebrows. "Don't worry. Not many people can withstand my father's interrogation. His father should be almost done with the matters at hand, and could take the time to help interrogate them. He thought that they should be able to dig out a lot of things from these people. Right, he had to report the situation to the prefecture magistrate, who was originally in charge of capturing the human traffickers. It was only because this matter involved his family that the prefecture magistrate handed it over to Do Fukong. After the matter was settled, he had to give an explanation. Gu Yundong nodded. "All right, let's go and see Second Master Duan and the rest. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1299. Duan Qian and Second Master Duan meet. Hence, the two sides parted ways. Do Fukong brought a few guards and hurried to the backyard of the government office. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan went to Huimin Medical Center. Second Master Duan and the rest were sent there. When they arrived at Huimin Medical Center, they saw Shao Wen coming out. Shao Wen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw them. "How is it?" Gu Yundong asked. Shao shrugged. It's fine. Young masters' medicine only makes their stomachs hurt for a while. It's not fatal. It's just that they're still unconscious now. They'll be fine when they wake up later. They would probably be a little frightened. That's right. Mrs. Was lethal poison had been switched long ago. The poison she had fed Second Master Duan was developed by Shao Qingyuan. Although it looked the same on the outside, the effects were worlds apart. However, Shao Qingyuan was very curious about Mrs. Was poison. He was thinking about studying it when he was free to see what ingredients were in it, if it was really incurable, and if it would take an hour to kill the target as she said. As he pondered, he walked towards the backyard of Huimin Medical Center. Second Master Duan's family of 3 lay on the bed together, looking peaceful. Yundong wanted to laugh. She did not have a good impression of the 3 Duan family members, but it was still up to Duan Qian to decide how they wanted to deal with this matter. Speak of the devil. Tong Shuitao brought Duan Qian and his sister over. Duan Qian had almost recovered, but today was the first time he had stepped out of the Dou residence. After all, Mrs. Zhua and the others had been caught, so there was no need for him to hide anymore. Upon seeing second Uncle Duan and the other 2, Duan Qian's eyes turned cold. He said to the servants of the Duan residence behind him, "Carry them home first." Yes. After the 3 of them were carried away, Duan Qian turned around and invited Shao Qingyuan and the others to the Duan residence as guests. Yundong waved her hand. You've just returned to the residence. There must be many things to deal with at home. Let's talk about it another day. Duan Qian thought about it and agreed. Second uncle had been torturing the Duan residence these days. It was time to reorganize it. Hence, he did not force her and brought Duan Wan into the carriage. Unexpectedly, just as he went up, Second Master Duan was jolted awake. The moment he opened his eyes, he suddenly met Duan Qian's cold eyes. He immediately gasped and was so shocked that he could not even speak. After a while he muttered, "I'm indeed dead." Then his head lolled and he closed his eyes again. Duan Wan sneered. "So what if you're dead? My brother is still alive and well." Second Master Duan suddenly opened his eyes again. He looked at Duan Wan and then at Duan Qian, but the shock on his face intensified. Immediately after, Duan Qian's cold voice sounded in his ears. "Second uncle, don't faint again. When we go back, we have to settle our scores." "Ah!" Second Master Duan suddenly screamed. He wasn't dead. He really wasn't dead. Not only was he not dead, he was back. If Duan Qian was with Duan Wan, then all the things Second Master Duan had done would be known. No, wasn't he poisoned by Mrs. Zhua? What was going on now? Second Master Duan's mind was filled with messy thoughts. In the end, he couldn't take it and fainted again. Duan Qian, Yundong and Shao Qingyuan heard Second Master Duan scream from outside. They looked at each other, shrugged, and smiled. We're almost done here. It's time for us to prepare to go to the capital. They couldn't wait. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1300. Yundong's shock. However, on the 3rd day after Mrs. Zhua was arrested, Dou Fukong came to them with a confession. After entering the backyard of the provision store, he immediately poured a glass of water for himself. "I told you that my father would definitely be able to pry open these people's mouths." He pointed at the paper on the table. This was all stated by Mrs. Zhua's gang. "I really didn't expect there to be so many people. Although most of them are in Qingyuan Prefecture, there are also many in the other prefectural cities. Furthermore, they even accept those fiendish outlaws." Yundong took the list from the table. There were indeed many names, gender, and age written densely on it. There were also some people whose addresses were marked at the back. "General Dou is amazing. You dug out so much." "Of course." Dou Fukong smiled. "You can't imagine my father's methods. Even a spy wouldn't have a good time in his hands, let alone this group of scumbags who only know how to bully the weak. Only Mrs. Zhua and that Liangzi have some backbone. At first, they refused to say anything, but it was useless when they met my father. They are afraid of death anyway and don't have the courage to commit suicide. Most of the information on this paper was revealed by them." Mrs. Zhua had been full of confidence just now because Liangzi would save her outside. Now that there was no hope and she could not withstand the pain, she had said what she should and should not say. According to his father, she had even told him some secrets from more than 10 years ago. Sure enough, pain could stimulate one's memory. Dou Fukong expressed that he had learned it. Your father is also avenging you. That was why he did his best. Gu Yundong's gaze was fixed on the list on the paper as she read it. Just as she was about to finish reading, her gaze suddenly froze and her fingers stopped. Beside her, Shao Qingyuan's expression changed slightly as he looked at one of the names in shock. Dou Fukong didn't notice their expressions and continued, My father is indeed quite angry about what happened more than 10 years ago. During the investigation at that time, many children were killed by them. Therefore, when he tortured them, he was really ruthless. So, sister-in-law, you don't have to worry that Mrs. Zhua and the others weren't taught a good lesson. You should feel more or less satisfied. Do you think? Halfway through his sentence, he realized that something was wrong with the two of them. Why did they not even blink when they stared at the paper? Dou Fukong waved his hand in front of them. What's wrong with you two? Gu Yundong suddenly came back to her senses and looked at Shao Qingyuan in disbelief. What's going on? Is there a problem with this list? Gu Yundong exhaled slowly and pointed at a name on it. Was this person once in cahoots with Mrs. Zhua? Dou Fukong tilted his head and looked over. Li Fashing from Yongfu Village in Fengkai County. Fengkai County, Yongfu Village? Dou Fukong suddenly looked at them. By the way, you guys are from Yongfu Village in Fengkai County. Then this person knows you guys? More than that. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and reached out to hold Shao Qingyuan's hand. Her voice was low and filled with hatred. This person is Shao's grandfather. No, I shouldn't say grandpa. He was the one who carried brother Shao away when he was still young. Dou Fukong was stunned. Qingyuan, weren't you originally from Yongfu Village? Taken away? So he wasn't a child born and raised in Yongfu Village? This Li Fashing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1301. Old Li's identity. Shao Qingyuan suddenly stood up. Who did you get this name from? I want to know about Li Fashing. If Old Man Li was once a member of this gang, then it was possible that he had been carried away by this group of people. Perhaps he could find out the whereabouts of his biological family. However, even Shao Qingyuan did not expect Old Li to be a human trafficker previously, and he was even working with such a large gang. No wonder he was often not in Yongfu Village and always looked for work in the prefectural city. Shao Qingyuan thought of the scene when he was sold to the human traffickers by Boss Li and his wife when he was 8 years old. After he escaped, Old Li said that he had been looking for him, but he couldn't find him. Now that he thought about it, the man might have known long ago. Dou Fukong glanced at the paper and said, I found out from Liangzi. Let's go, I'll bring you guys to take a look now. The three of them quickly left the grocery store and headed to the prison. Liangzi had been tortured yesterday. He was in a better state today, but he was still covered in injuries and looked very miserable. His limbs had already been reattached. According to Dou Fukong, Liangzi had requested it himself. He would only confess after his limbs were reattached. General Dou got someone to treat him. This gave Liangzi some hope and made him feel that he could escape, and that he did not have to risk his life to protect the secret. In the end, Liangzi really confessed a lot. However, the guards in this cell had been replaced by General Dou's men. If Liangzi wanted to escape, he had to see if they allowed it. Shao Qingyuan and the other two stood at the corner of the cell and looked at the huddled figure from afar. Dou Fukong said, I'll get someone to ask. We can just listen here. Shao Qingyuan nodded. Gu Yundong held his hand tightly and refused to let go. Soon, someone entered and walked to Liangzi's side. Liangzi heard the footsteps and raised his eyes slightly. He was still lying motionless on the straw. He only asked weakly, Is there anything else you want to ask? Among the people you recruited previously, was there a person called Li Fashing from Yongfu Village? Liangzi frowned and seemed to think for a long time before replying. Did I mention him? I was stupid. This person quit a long time ago. Later, I heard that he was already dead. You don't have to catch him. Why didn't he quit? When did he quit? How could you allow him to leave? Liangzi found it strange. Why are you so curious about Li Fashing? Just tell me. You don't have to know anything else. Liangzi secretly curled his lips and sneered. This time, he was silent for a long time, as if he was recalling what happened back then. After a long time, he slowly began to speak. Shao, Qingyuan and the others were standing not far away. They had sharp ears and eyes, so although Liangzi's voice was a little low, they could still hear him clearly. Li Fashing. I think he quit 20 years ago. As for why he was allowed to leave, Liangzi laughed. Because he walked this path with Boss Sua. When we first did this, it was just him and Boss Sua. He didn't want to do it anymore. As long as Boss Sua agreed, no one dared to stop him. Shao, Qingyuan and the others were stunned. Old Li was actually a leader? If Sua Hong had not died, he would already be in his 50s. In that case, Old Man Li was only a few years older than him. It was indeed possible for them to collaborate to commit a crime. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1302, Shao Qingyuan was stolen. Liangzi continued. It's a pity that although Li Fashing and Boss Sua did it together, he's not bold enough or smart enough. He's not popular. Therefore, after Sua Hong nurtured many people under him, Li Fashing's position became more and more awkward. Perhaps because he knew that he wouldn't get much benefits if he continued, and he might become more and more marginalized in the future, Li Fashing found an opportunity and left their group. Boss Sua was more or less concerned about their past friendship, so he did not stop them. The person who asked narrowed his eyes. What opportunity did Li Fashing find? Well, Liang was silent for a moment before saying, he stole a child and said that the child's family was his enemy. He wanted to raise the child and let him kill his biological parents. Shao, Qingyuan and the other two, who were standing in the corner, straightened their backs at the same time and held their breaths. Who is that child? Who are his biological parents? Liangzi finally raised his head and looked at the person who asked the question. He said, I don't know. I only know that the child was stolen from the capital. At that time, Li Fashing and I went to the capital together. That day happened to be the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival. There was a lantern festival in the capital. There were people crowded on the street. Li Fashing and I wanted to take the opportunity to do something. He seemed to be recalling something and said slowly, at that time, the two of us were staring at the people coming and going on the street. Suddenly, we saw a young couple. When Li Fashing saw them, his gaze became very scary, as if he wanted to rush over and kill them. He was especially ferocious. I was shocked. Then, Li Fashing asked me for help. He said that he wanted the child in his wife's arms and asked me to help steal it. After all, he's only a farmer and only had brute force. Actually, I knew that he wanted me to kill that couple. Haha, how was that possible? Why would I kill two people who didn't look like people to be trifled with for him? Li Fashing also knew that it was impossible, so he made a deal with me to steal the child. Li Fashing promised me that as long as I gave him the child, he would give me all the treasures he had obtained in the past few years. I know he's rich, especially rich. He hid all his money in one place, but he was actually willing to give me such a large sum of money. It can be seen how much he hated this couple. The person who asked the question was silent for a moment before speaking again. Do you know what hatred Li Fashing had for that couple? Liangzi looked up at the top of the cell. I don't know. What's the status of that couple? Liangzi suddenly looked at him with a faint smile. You seem to be very curious about Li Fashing. Why? He's already dead. Could it be because of that child? Just say it. Why are there so many questions? Liangzi smiled. It was a little too much and pulled at the wound on his face. It hurt so much that he snorted before replying in a low voice. I don't know the identity of that couple. After stealing the child, we didn't stay in the capital anymore. We directly left the city and ran far away. You don't know the identity of the couple? Gu Yundong frowned. Didn't that mean that there were still no clues? Do you remember what the couple looked like? Liangzi paused and narrowed his eyes as if he was thinking for a long time before saying, what they looked like? It's been 20 years. How can I still remember what they looked like? After a pause, he continued, I just vaguely remember that the two of them were good-looking. They were a perfect match. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1303. Special Bracelet, what else? The person who asked the question frowned. This range was too wide. There were many good-looking couples in the world. What was the use of saying this? Also, Liangzi pondered for a moment. By the way, the wife was wearing a very special silver bracelet on her wrist. There's a leaf on one side of the bracelet and a small bead on the other. Coincidentally, the small bead could be pressed into the leaf with a light clasp. That child especially liked to grab this bracelet with his hand, so I have some impression. Yundong, who was not far away, hurriedly asked someone to bring a brush and paper over. She drew the bracelet according to Liangzi's words. The bracelet was a little strange, but Yundong still handed the drawing to the person who asked. Liangzi looked at the picture and then at the corner. He smiled. There seems to be something missing. He thought for a while and suddenly frowned. Oh right, there were 3 different colored tassels in the middle. The child must have seen that and went to catch it. Yundong was speechless. She suspected that Liangzi was lying. However, she still drew the tassels on the original bracelet. This time, the bracelet was even stranger. This time, Liangzi nodded. That's about it. Yundong looked at the drawing on the paper and exchanged glances with Shao Qingyuan. The guy had already asked enough questions and knew that they had met the couple on that street. Moreover, if what Liangzi said was true, that couple must have doted on Shao Qingyuan a lot. Yundong was willing to believe that. The 3 of them walked out of the cell. Do Fukong asked curiously, "Do you think what he said is true? Could he be lying to us? When you torture him again, just say that he lied and beat him up to see if he will change his confession," Shao Qingyuan suggested. Do Fukong couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. How ruthless. It's fine. Compared to him, I'm already considered kind. Do Fukong thought about it and felt that it made sense. With Liangzi's evil deeds, it wouldn't be too much to punish him a few times physically. Besides, compared to Liangzi, Shao Qingyuan was a victim. He had been stolen by Liangzi. After taking a few steps, Yundong suddenly reminded Do Fukong, "I see that Liangzi has been lying motionless on the straw pile. Is there something wrong?" Do Fukong was stunned. "You suspect that he dug a hole down there?" He instantly stopped in his tracks. "I'll go back and take a look." Then, he hurriedly walked into the cell. After a while, he came out again with a relaxed smile on his face. He waved at Yundong. "It's okay. He can't escape. But you're right." The guard said that he did dig a hole. However, digging a hole was useless. This cell was different from ordinary cells. You could not dig out at all. No wonder General Do reattached Liangzi's limbs without hesitation. Yundong stopped paying attention and went to a silver shop with Shao Qingyuan. He got someone to make a silver bracelet according to the blueprint. The boss of the silver shop asked them to come and collect it 2 days later. He guaranteed that it would be exactly the same as the drawing on the blueprint. Even if it was different, it could be changed. Only then did Yundong and Shao Qingyuan leave. 2 days later, they obtained the silver bracelet from the silver shop. How should she put it? Although it was a little strange when drawn, it was fun after it was made. Yundong held the silver bracelet in her hand and turned to look at Shao Qingyuan. The latter also looked at the bracelet, and something flickered in his eyes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1304. Liangzi is dead, Brother Shao. Your mother must have doted on you. The bracelet was not pretty, but its color attracted the attention of children. Perhaps Big Brother Shao's mother had specially given him such a silver bracelet. Shao Qingyuan's gaze was complicated. He took the bracelet and remained silent for a long time. After a long time he said, "Let's set off for the capital tomorrow." Yundong's eyes lit up. This was the first time Shao Qingyuan had taken the initiative to look for his parents. She felt that the confusion in his heart had disappeared. Yundong grabbed his hand and nodded heavily. "All right, we'll leave tomorrow. Let's go back first and buy a ship ticket at the docks." The 2 of them seemed to instantly be in a good mood. The gloominess in their hearts dissipated bit by bit, and even their footsteps became very light. They went to the docks to reserve a passenger ship. They had already talked to the person in charge here beforehand. Moreover, they had come with Do Fukong at that time and asked about the price, the time to leave the ship, and some things to take note of. Now that they had come again, it was not so troublesome. They quickly decided on the time to come to the docks tomorrow and paid the deposit on the spot. The person in charge knew that they were related to young Master Do, so he did not dare to cheat them. In addition, the two of them were generous and rewarded them with silver. Therefore, he added a few more words to remind them to prepare the medicine and food for seasickness. Before Yundong and the rest left, he even gave her a simple map of the river that he had drawn. On it, he marked where the ship would pass, when it would dock, and how long it would be suitable for resupply. It was extremely thoughtful. Yundong went back and began to prepare. Then, she heard a piece of news not long after. Liangzi is dead? It was obvious that that person had a strong desire to live. Why did he suddenly die? Shao Qingyuan nodded. He was poisoned to death. Yundong could not understand. Under General Do's watch, could anyone sneak in and poison the beam? Unless, Shao Qingyuan said, it was the prison head who poisoned him. The prison head's son was kidnapped by Liangzi and the others many years ago and was later killed. When the prison head heard Liangzi's confession, he had hatred in his heart. Now that General Do was almost done with the torture, Liangzi no longer had any useful value. When he was delivering food to Liangzi, he poisoned the food and personally avenged his son. Yundong sighed when he heard this. This was probably what it meant to commit evil and bring about self-destruction. What about Mrs. Zhua? Mrs. Zhua is in the women's prison. The prison head can't get in touch with her, so he didn't have the chance to do anything. However, the prison head also said that Liangzi looks even more dangerous. He was afraid that the man would escape when he was sent to be beheaded, so he couldn't wait to do it. Yundong was speechless. Very good, this reason was very good. By the way, Duan Qian knew that we were leaving and specially invited us to the residence tonight. He also invited Do Fukong. All right, we'll go in a while. I have something to tell Duan Wan. The two of them changed their clothes and brought Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao to the Duan residence. When she entered the hall, she saw that Do Fukong was already there and talking to Duan Qian. Upon seeing them, Duan Qian immediately stood up and greeted them. You're here. Sit here. Duan Wan quickly came over and pulled Yundong aside to talk. Unexpectedly, the first thing she said was a heavy bomb. Yundong was shocked. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1305. The End of Second Master Duan's Family. Duan Wan married Old Master Zhang, Duan Wan said. Yundong's hand, which had just picked up the pastry, froze. After a while she asked softly, Really? Yes, my big brother did it. I feel especially relieved now. This was really giving Duan Wan a taste of her own medicine. Duan Qian returned everything that Second Master Duan had done to Duan Wan. Yundong had been paying attention to Mrs. Zhua these days. Later on, she was very concerned about Shao Qingyuan's background and did not pay attention to the Duan family. She did not expect Duan Qian to make such a big move in just a few days. Is Duan Wan willing to marry him? Duan Wan pursed her lips. Of course not, but what's the use of her not being willing? As long as second uncle and second aunt agree, she has no choice but to marry. It's her parents' order to matchmake, so how can Duan Wan have the right to object? Besides, my brother directly cut off Duan Wan's monthly allowance and removed the maids beside her. There's not even a servant in her courtyard to serve her. There's no one to cook, clean, or serve her. It's just 2 days. She couldn't take it anymore after 2 days and cried and agreed to marry Old Master Zhang. Although Old Master Zhang was old and had many concubines, and the Zhang family was not as rich as the Duan family, at least she would have food, drinks, and people to serve her. Moreover, her parents had agreed because of Duan Qian's methods, and no one supported her. It was useless even if she resisted. After that, Duan Wan married into the Zhang residence. But Yundong did not need to think to know that Duan Qian would definitely focus on suppressing the Zhang residence in the coming days. Back then, Old Master Zhang had also participated in the incident that destroyed Duan Wan's innocence. How could Duan Qian let him off? What about Second Master Duan and his wife? My brother sent them back to the hometown. The Duan family's hometown was in the countryside and was very remote. There was naturally no one to serve Second Master Duan and his wife. From now on, they would have to earn money and spend whatever they earned to eat and drink. The two of them were used to living a comfortable life. In the future they would have to do everything themselves. One could imagine how bitter their lives would be. Especially in front of Mrs. Zhua. The two of them had fallen out and fought on the spot. That incident was like a thorn between the husband and wife, and it would stir up trouble from time to time. The two of them would probably have a lively life in the future. Where's second young Master Duan? Duan Wan sighed. Second young Master Duan was still young and did not know about these things from the beginning to the end. After knowing what his parents and sister had done, he was greatly shocked and locked himself up in the house for a few days. When he came out, he asked to go to the countryside with his parents. However, Second Master Duan and his wife did not agree. The two of them still doted on their only son. They begged Duan Qian to let Second Master Duan off and let him continue to stay in the Duan family and study. Duan Qian actually had a good relationship with his cousin. The other party was only 12 or 13 years old and did not have any bad intentions. He was just a little playful and did not care about many things in the family. Therefore, Duan Qian agreed to let his cousin stay in the prefectural city. However, he had set up another courtyard for him to stay in so that he could study in peace. If the cousin became capable in the future and wanted to bring his parents back, Duan Qian would not object. Gu Yundong did not comment on Duan Qian's way of handling the matter. She believed that after this incident, Duan Qian would definitely be more cautious. Gu Yundong avoided this topic and was about to tell Duan Wan about the shop. Unexpectedly, Duan Wan suddenly blushed and whispered something into her ear. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1306. Duan Wan is engaged. Gu Yundong choked on his own saliva. Ahem, what did you just say? Duan Wan pushed her. Don't pretend you didn't hear me. I just feel very surprised. Gu Yundong blinked and silently turned his head to look at Dou Fukong, who was sitting not far away. This guy actually came to the Duan residence to propose marriage, and he even proposed to Duan Wan? Duan Wan saw her looking over so blatantly and hurriedly turned her face back. Don't look around. I don't want to look around either. I couldn't help it, right? Gu Yundong retracted her gaze and nudged her gently. She asked, what did he say? He just thinks I'm great. Gu Yundong was speechless. Just like that. However, looking at Duan Wan's expression, it wasn't like she didn't have feelings for Dou Fukong. That's right. Dou Fukong was a handsome man. He was talented in both civil and military matters. He was also warm-hearted and loyal. Although he had married a wife before, that wife had passed away in a year due to poor health. However, for a family like the Dou family, even if he were to remarry, there would still be many people who would crush his doorstep. If Dou Fukong wanted to marry Duan Wan, he would definitely be sincere. However, Gu Yundong was still a little worried. Have you understood the Dou family situation? I've heard that the Dou family is a military family. The Dou family's people have straightforward tempers and there aren't many twists and turns. They also don't have as many rules as those aristocratic families. I heard that young Master Dou's sister-in-law has even been to the battlefield before. Therefore, even though I'm a businesswoman, the Dou family doesn't mind. Gu Yundong did not say anything else. Duan Qian should have considered these questions. She teased Duan Wan, then I'll congratulate you here, but I won't have the chance to attend your wedding. Shall I give you a gift in advance? What gift? Duan Wan was very curious. She was looking forward to it. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She said, I don't have one now. I didn't know that you had decided on it. Before I leave tomorrow, I'll get someone to hand it to you. You don't need to leave it to me. I'll send you to the dock tomorrow, Duan Wan said. Then she suddenly lowered her head and said disappointedly, I can't bear to see you go. Gu Yundong found it funny. She recalled their hostile gazes when they first met. Now it was rare for them to sit here and talk. She changed her mind and told her about the shop. Duan Wan had to prepare for her wedding and could not find time in a short period of time. However, Gu Yundong did not intend to let her open the shop now. After dinner, Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan returned to the provision store. They were now living in the backyard of the provision store. Knowing that they were leaving, Grandpa Yu and the rest could not bear to leave. At this moment, they began to busy themselves in the kitchen to prepare the food they needed to bring along on the way. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, this was Grandpa Yu and the rest's kind intentions. She could not bear to let them down. The next morning, Grandpa Yu and Uncle Yu personally sent Gu Yundong and the rest to the pier. Just as they were saying goodbye, Duan Qian and the other two came over. Gu Yundong held a long box in her hand and stuffed it into Duan Wan's arms. "This is your wedding gift. Keep it well and look at it when you get back." "Okay." Duan Wan couldn't help but tear up. She didn't like this kind of parting scene. It wasn't easy for her to have such a close friend, but she didn't expect that her friend would leave after spending a few days with her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1307. Gu Yundong's gift. Gu Yundong patted her shoulder. "I'll visit you when I return from the capital. You have to receive us well then." "Definitely." Gu Yundong then looked at Duan Qian and Dou Fukong. The two of them had finished talking to Shao Qingyuan. In the end she only said, "Take care. Have a safe trip." Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan nodded at them and turned to walk towards the ship. Their carriage could not be transported over together. Although this passenger ship was big, the carriage took up too much space. Such a passenger ship would not allow guests to bring it over, so the carriage could only stay in Wanqing Prefecture for the time being. They had to let the Yu family take care of it. Therefore, they could only move the things on the carriage to the cabin of the passenger ship one by one. When Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan talked to and Duan Wan and boarded the ship, Eugene and Shaowen had already helped carry everything up. At this moment, Eugene jumped off the boat and said to Gu Yundong, "Sister Gu, brother-in-law, the things have been placed. My grandfather's pancakes are in the rattan basket at the outermost corner. Don't forget to eat them later." "Of course, thank you." "You're welcome." Eugene stood beside his father and grandfather and waved at Gu Yundong and the others. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief before turning around and entering the cabin with Shao Qingyuan. The cabins here were not big. There were many rooms. The cabin that Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were staying in was not bad. It was on the upper floor. Although it was small, it was clean. There were cabinets and windows in the room. Occasionally, sunlight would enter. There were 2 more floors under the cabin they were in. These 2 floors had no windows and the rooms were not big. Moreover, the bottom floor was almost filled with large bunks. It was a little messy and damp. Gu Yundong opened the windows and saw Uncle Yu, Duan Wan, and the others still standing at the pier, as if they would not leave until the boat left. Duan Wan could not help but look at the long box in her hand. She quietly ran to the back of the carriage and opened the box. Then, she saw a scroll. Duan Wan was stunned. Jilan, who was beside her, was also curious. She took the box from Duan Wan's hand and asked, Mrs. Shao gave you a scroll. Could it be some famous painting?" She thought it would be jewelry or something. Duan Wan suddenly thought of the portraits of Mrs. Zhua and the others drawn by Gu Yundong. Her eyes lit up and she eagerly opened the scroll. "Wow!" Jilan widened her eyes and exclaimed, "It's Miss and her future husband." Duan Wan also held her breath as she looked at the characters on the scroll. There were 2 people on it, a man and a woman in a red wedding dress with a happy smile on their faces. The man was Dou Fukong, and the woman was her. The portrait was very vivid, as if it was copied from their faces. The 2 of them were next to each other, and they actually looked like husband and wife. This time, Gu Yundong had colored the portrait, so it looked even more lifelike. "That's right. You can hang this painting in your room after we get married in the future." A familiar voice suddenly came from behind. Duan Wan suddenly came back to her senses and saw Dou Fukong standing behind her. Her face immediately turned red. She hurriedly put away the portrait, rolled it up, and stuffed it into the box. Without looking up, she said, This was given to me by Yundong. Of course, I'll decide where to hang it." With that, she lowered her head and walked back to the dock. "I'll go thank Yundong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1308. Where did Tong Shuitao go? After saying that, Duan quickly ran away. Do Fukong, who was behind, smiled. I clearly heard her say that it was a wedding gift for the two of us. Then, he shook his head with a smile and followed her. When she reached the dock, she saw Duan waving at Yundong and shouting, "Yundong, thank you." Duan's voice could not be heard because of the noise at the dock and the sound of the waves. Yundong could only see the corners of her mouth moving. She seemed to have heard her name, so she raised her hand and waved. Yundong only retracted her head from the window when she heard the whistle. She frowned and looked at Shao Qingyuan and Shao, who were tidying up. Shuitao isn't back yet? Shao stopped what he was doing. Seeing that it was getting late, he also became anxious. That's right. She said that she would definitely come back before the ship sailed, but I didn't see her even when the ship was about to sail. Did she say where she was going? Shao Qingyuan asked. Yundong shook her head. She said that she was going out early in the morning. I thought that she might have some private matters to attend to, so I didn't ask further. I only told her to hurry back and not miss the boat. As they spoke, Yundong felt the boat shake slightly. The boat had already begun to move. Yundong suddenly stood up and hurried out of the cabin. As soon as she opened the door, she heard a familiar voice from afar. Wait for me. Wait for me. Don't start the boat yet. I haven't come up yet. The corner of Yundong's mouth twitched. She saw Tong Shuitao rush past the 3 family members and Duan like a gust of wind. She quickly ran towards the bow of the ship. The crew member who was tightening the rope was shocked and quickly stopped her. Stop, stop. Don't be rash. You'll fall if you jump over directly. At this moment, the bow had already left the shore and the pedal had been removed. There was a long distance between them. However, Tong Shuitao did not seem to hear it. With a sudden help, she jumped heavily and flew onto the deck. The crew member closed his eyes and did not dare to look any longer. The rope in his hand fell to the deck with a thud. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan was quick-witted. He dragged the sack beside him and threw it over. Tong Shuitao fell onto the sack, so her face was not disfigured. Ouch! She cried out in pain. After lying there for a while, she slowly raised her head and happened to see Yundong and the other 2 in front of her. She immediately grinned at them. However, halfway through her grinning, the captain came over angrily and said to her, "What's wrong with you? Do you know how dangerous it is to jump forward like this? If you don't jump onto the boat and fall into the river, you'll lose your innocence as a girl." Tong Shuitao shrunk her neck. She knew that the other party had good intentions and hurriedly got up. She said guiltily, "I won't do it again." The captain wanted to say something else, but the crew member tugged at his sleeve and pointed at Yundong and the other 2 standing not far away, reminding him that this maidservant had a master. Only then did the captain shut his mouth. He exhaled and turned to leave. Yundong pointed at Tong Shuitao. "Look at how capable you are. Aren't you afraid of falling? Come in with me." Tong Shuitao laughed dryly and hurriedly followed Yundong in. Shao, who was the last to enter, closed the cabin door. Yundong asked, "Where did you go? Why did you come back so late?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1309. Rong's reminder. Tong Shuitao walked to Yundong's side obsequiously and said in embarrassment, "I paid tributes to someone." Yundong was stunned. "Tributes?" "Yes, Rong came to look for me before I came. He knew that we were going to pass by Wanqing Prefecture, so he asked me to visit his sister and tell her that he's doing well. He'll come and visit her again if he has the chance in the future." Yundong suddenly remembered that she had bought Rong from the broker in Wanqing Prefecture. Previously, he was a servant in the Qian residence. His sister was killed by the eldest young master of the Qian residence. "You should have told me earlier. I could have gone to take a look." Yundong rubbed her temples. Tong Shuitao scratched her head. "I wanted to tell Miss previously, but Rong told me not to say anything. He said that if Miss knew, she would definitely go and take a look. However, you are Miss, and Rong is a servant. He can't afford such good fortune." Yundong was speechless. Tong Shuitao admitted her mistake. I didn't notice. I exchanged a few more words with Sister Rong and told her that Rong is doing well in the Gu family. Now, he has learned a lot of knowledge from old master. Now, he speaks like a decent man. I couldn't hold back my words, so I came late. All right, just be careful next time. Also, if you encounter such a situation, don't jump up without a care. Yes, miss. I won't do it again. Only then did Gu Yundong stop blaming her. The few of them unpacked their things for a while. They rented 3 rooms. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan's rooms were in the middle, Tong Shuitao's on the left, and Shao Wen's on the right. Tong Shuitao and her husband packed up their things and moved some pots and pans to their rooms. In an instant, Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan room became open and bright. Gu Yundong took out a clean blanket from the box and laid it on the bed. Only then did she sit comfortably by the window and look at the scenery. Unexpectedly, as soon as she opened the window, she saw Tong Shuitao waving at her from the other side. Miss, this is my first time taking a boat. Gu Yundong had been on a boat before, but this was also her first time in this world. It had to be said that this boat was actually sailing quite quickly. The water was very clear, but the wind was a little strong. Shao Qingyuan brought a cloak over and covered half of her head with the hat. Don't catch a cold. There will be a lot of days on the ship in the future. There's no hurry. I've asked around. When we pass by Heading Prefecture, there will be osmanthus trees planted on both sides of the shore. This is the time when the osmanthus flowers bloom. There's fragrance all the way. There are also osmanthus flowers floating on the river. It looks like a paradise. Why had she not heard of this? Gu Yundong's interest was piqued. Just imagining that scene made her look forward to it. Indeed, this was the honeymoon trip she had imagined. After staring at the river for a while, Gu Yundong closed half of the window and rested for a while in the cabin. In the afternoon, they ate the food given by Uncle Yu. Gu Yundong smeared the hot sauce on the food. It tasted extremely good. It was just that Uncle Yu had given them a little too many pancakes. They had to finish the pancakes before they could eat anything else. At night, Tong Shuitao borrowed the kitchen on the boat to make some porridge and continued to eat the pancakes before sleeping. Gu Yundong had thought that everything would go smoothly, but unexpectedly, when she woke up the next day, she realized that Tong Shuitao was actually seasick. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:10. Really trash. Gu Yundong looked at Tong Shuitao, who was lying on the bed listlessly. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She was clearly quite happy and excited yesterday. She said that it was her first time taking a boat and that she had even walked through all the public places on the boat in the afternoon. Unexpectedly, after only one night, she could not get up. Shao Qingyuan gave her a seasickness pill. Only then did she feel much better, but she only felt a little better. It was impossible for her to do anything. Tong Shuitao was crying. Miss, I've let you down. Originally, I should be the one taking care of you when you bring me to the capital. Now I can't do anything. You have to do everything yourself. I'm really useless. Really useless. All right. This is not something you can control. Gu Yundong saw that she wanted to kill herself to apologize and quickly stopped her. Rest first. Don't let your imagination run wild. It will get better. Tong Shuitao lay on the bed, still feeling terrible. Before she left, she had promised Master and Madam that she would take good care of Mississippi. She was clearly stronger than a man. How could she get seasick when she was so healthy? This was too unreasonable. Tong Shuitao was still indignant and asked Shao Qingyuan for a few more seasickness pills. However, how could she take too much medicine? Shao Qingyuan only gave her enough dosage for a day and was unwilling to give her too much. After a day like this, Tong Shuitao's symptoms did not lessen. Instead, it made the young miss and her husband feel uneasy. Therefore, she could only give up and lie on the bed. After finishing the pancakes given by Uncle Yu, Gu Yundong began to cook. Originally, these things were done by Tong Shuitao. Now that she couldn't get up and Shao Qingyuan only knew how to cook porridge, the taste of Shao Wen's food could only be considered passable. Gu Yundong did not want to suffer. Coincidentally, she had nothing to do on the ship all day, so she simply cooked by herself. There were 3 kitchens on the ship. The bigger ones were used by the crew to cook, and the ship actually provided food. However, the taste of the food cooked in a pot could be imagined. In addition, there were limited ingredients on the ship, so those who were qualified would cook themselves. The other 2 small kitchens were prepared for these people. However, the small kitchens were really small. Moreover, everybody could only use charcoal to start the fire. The stove also used charcoal. Yundong had bought 2 large bags of charcoal before she boarded the ship. It should be enough to start a fire and cook. If it was not enough, she could only buy more on the way. The conditions on the ship were limited, but this was already not bad. Yundong had prepared a lot of fresh food. That day, she used a small pot to stir-fry 2 dishes on the stove. She was willing to add oil and seasonings. As soon as she started cooking, the fragrance spread. Someone smelled the fragrance and came over. He swallowed his saliva as he looked at her dishes. There was also someone from a good family who wanted to spend money to buy food from Yundong. Yundong cooked to treat herself well, and she did not have the energy to take care of others. Moreover, Qingyuan did not allow her to tire herself out. Actually, if Yundong did not want to eat good food, Qingyuan would have asked Shao when to cook or buy food from the ship. Hence, he turned down all requests to buy food from Yundong. After 2 comfortable days, Yundong finally saw the heading prefecture, which was filled with the fragrance of osmanthus flowers. The ship would be docked here for 4 hours. The ship would be resupplied, so everyone could get off the ship to move around. Of course, some people would get off the ship and some other guests would board. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:11. Sleepy Yundong also got off the ship and specially asked Tong Shuitao to get off and walk around. After Tong Shuitao's legs landed on the ground, she finally felt much more comfortable. Once she left, she could not bear to get on the boat. After Yundong bought something nearby, she stood at the dock and waited until the boat was about to sail before getting on. Yundong ignored her and got on the boat to put the things away. Qingyuan and Shao walked further away from the dock to buy other things in the city. Therefore, just like Tong Shuitao, they returned when the ship was about to sail. Tong Shuitao's expression was a little strange when she returned. She first glanced at her, then at Qingyuan, and then at her. Then, she returned to her cabin. Yundong was speechless. What the hell? She turned around and returned to the cabin. She asked Qingyuan, "What's wrong with her?" Qingyuan shook his head. "Who? Shuitao. That girl just now looked like she had something to say to you." Qingyuan didn't pay attention. "I don't know. Maybe he wants a few more seasickness pills." Yundong thought about it and agreed. She had finally recovered after resting for 4 hours. Once she boarded the ship, she would be beaten back to her original state. She must be very indignant. However, there was no need to discuss this matter. She could not take medicine recklessly. She quickly retracted her attention and saw Qingyuan open a bag in his hand and take out the things inside. The osmanthus in the heading prefecture is famous, so there are many things made from osmanthus. This is the osmanthus cake bought from the most famous shop in the prefectural city. Try it. Also, this is osmanthus tea. Drink it when you want it. This hairpin is decorated with osmanthus flowers. It's very exquisite. I'll put it on for you. Qingyuan laid out everything. Apart from these, there was also an osmanthus sachet, dried osmanthus honey, and a pile of other things. Yundong found it funny. Seeing him stick the hairpin in her hair, she could not help but reach out and hug his waist. She looked up at him. "Why did you buy all of them for me? Didn't you buy anything for yourself?" Moreover, they were all on the docks. "Is there a reward?" Yundong laughed and leaned forward to kiss him. Qingyuan grabbed her by the waist and she could not move. The two of them only let go after a long time. Their faces were a little red. Yundong smelled the fragrance of osmanthus in the room and felt a little sleepy. The boat shook. Yundong came back to her senses and knew that the boat had sailed. She adjusted the hairpin in her hair and gathered all those things. Other than the osmanthus flowers, Qingyuan also bought some vegetables and necessities, which were quite heavy. Fortunately, he still had the energy to go elsewhere to buy so many things. Gu Yundong took out a bag of pork ribs and smiled. Just nice, these pork ribs will be used to stew radishes tonight. She had seen them near the docks before. There were ribs, but they didn't look very good, so she didn't buy them. She didn't expect him to bring a bag over. Shao Qingyuan hugged her. "I'll help you. No need. The kitchen is very small. I can't even turn around if a man like you squeezes in." Gu Yundong refused and left with the pork ribs. As soon as she went out, she realized that Tong Shuitao had also opened the cabin door. Gu Yundong glanced at her. "You're not seasick anymore?" It would have been better if she hadn't said anything, but the moment she did, Tong Shuitao felt uncomfortable. "Dizzy. Then why don't you lie in your room? Why did you come out?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:12. A woman follows young Master Tong Shuitao swayed, but still came over and pulled Gu Yundong into her cabin. "Miss, I thought about it and felt that I should tell you." "What are you talking about? You look so mysterious." Gu Yundong sat on the edge of the bed and raised her eyebrows. Tong Shuitao lowered her voice. "Miss, when I boarded the ship just now, I saw a woman following behind young Master. You don't know, but the way that woman looked at young Master, that affectionate and loyal expression. Don't use random idioms. Speak properly." "Oh." Tong Shuitao quickly stopped and continued. "In short, it's obvious that that woman has ill intentions towards young Master. She insisted on following him. She's very shameless." Gu Yundong asked, "What about Brother Shao?" "As for young Master, I don't know if young Master heard her, but he walked very quickly and left that woman behind in an instant." Tong Shuitao was especially proud when she said this. "Actually, I think with Miss around, young Master won't fancy other women." Gu Yundong smiled. "In that case, what's there to be conflicted about? Even though young Master has young Miss, he can't stop women from pestering him. Some people don't care about being young Master's concubine at all and insist on clinging to him. Therefore, young Miss, we have to guard him tightly. We have to keep an eye on young Master at all times to see if any women appear around him. For example, just now, after young Miss and young Master disembarked from the ship, you went to different places, and young Master was immediately targeted by women. Keeping an eye on Brother Shao at all times?" Gu Yundong felt suffocated at the thought of this. Seeing Tong Shuitao's serious expression, Gu Yundong did not know what to say. Tong Shuitao said, "Miss, don't take it lightly. In the past, I also felt that this kind of thing wouldn't happen to young Master. After all, when we were in Yongfu village, those girls all hid far away when they saw young Master. Young Master had already become a 20-year-old wifeless man, so his market was not good. However, once he left Yongfu village, young Master immediately became popular. We have to be wary." Gu Yundong was speechless. She patted Tong Shuitao's shoulder. "I think what you said makes sense, but I can't stand keeping an eye on someone all the time, so forget it. I know better than you what kind of person your Master is. Even if he really likes other women one day, it's not like I can't live alone. Are you afraid that I won't be able to support you?" "Of course not." "All right, don't let your imagination run wild. Otherwise you'll feel even more dizzy. Well, stew pork ribs with radishes tonight." Thinking of Miss Culinary skills, Tong Shuitao couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Although she was seasick, her appetite didn't seem to have decreased. It was also a very magical thing. Gu Yundong carried the pork ribs out, but when she thought of what Tong Shuitao had said, she returned to her cabin to look for Shao Qingyuan. However, when she went over, she realized that the door of the cabin was locked. He should have gone out. Gu Yundong did not go in again. She carried the pork ribs to the small kitchen. When she entered, she realized that there was already someone in the small kitchen, and it was a girl. The girl was bending over and fanning the stove. When she saw her enter, she looked up at her and nodded expressionlessly. Then, she continued fanning the fire. Gu Yundong smelled medicine. It should be a medicine jar. She nodded and began to do her own thing. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13:13. Dr. Cui Gu Yundong soaked the ribs in clean water and took out the fish that had already been processed. There was no shortage of aquatic products on the ship. There were fish sold on the ship every day, so Gu Yundong made different fish to eat. Braised fish, steamed fish, pickled fish, sweet and sour fish, spicy boiled fish, fish head tofu soup, fried fish pieces, and so on. It had only been 2 days, and there were still many things on her menu that had not been tried. Today, with the pork rib soup, she wanted to make fried fish. Gu Yundong was thinking about the steps when she felt a gaze on her. She turned her head slightly and met the gaze of the girl who was brewing the medicine. The girl immediately retracted her gaze and went to open the medicine jar. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and continued with her work. However, after a while, the girl looked over again. Gu Yundong turned around and she looked away. This repeated several times until another girl came in from outside. Only then did the girl leave with the medicine jar. The girl who came in later was a maidservant of a madam on the ship. She was in charge of the madam's food and had become familiar with Gu Yundong over the past 2 days. The maid greeted Gu Yundong and got busy. After a while, she leaned over and whispered, "Mrs. Shao, do you know who the girl who went out just now was?" "I don't know." Gu Yundong's hands did not stop. She asked casually, "Do you know her?" "No." The maidservant shook her head. Gu Yundong, unexpectedly the maidservant quickly said, "She boarded the ship from Heading Manor today. The moment she came up, she saw many people getting seasick. They felt terrible and vomited at the side. She said that she was a doctor and borrowed the kitchen from the crew to start brewing medicine. Then, she gave it to those who got seasick. This is the 3rd jar she brewed." Gu Yundong was surprised. "Doctor." She thought of the girl's expressionless face just now. With such a cold expression, she really did not look like a doctor. The maidservant nodded. "My madam said that this girl is a good person. She provided the medicine for free and didn't require money. Mrs. Shao, isn't your maidservant seasick? Why don't you ask her for it too?" Gu Yundong asked, "Are those people feeling better after taking the seasickness medicine?" "A little better, but you know, this boat has been sailing all this time. Even after taking the medicine, they still don't look very energetic. But at least, they're not vomiting anymore. It's not that uncomfortable." Gu Yundong nodded. Shuitao had also taken Brother Shao's medicine. Not long after, the girl returned and continued to brew medicine. The maidservant did not speak to Gu Yundong again. The 3 people in the kitchen quietly went about their business. After cooking dinner, Gu Yundong placed the food in the food box and carried it out. However, when she left, Gu Yundong could clearly feel that the medicine lattice gaze was fixed on her back. Gu Yundong frowned. She did not like this feeling. If there was anything, just say it. What did he mean by sizing her up from time to time? She frowned as she headed for the stateroom. Unexpectedly, as soon as she reached the deck, she saw Shao Qingyuan talking to a middle-aged man. Gu Yundong looked over and hesitated for a moment, but did not go over. She just carried the food box into the cabin first. When she came out to look for Shao Qingyuan again, she saw a person standing beside the middle-aged man and Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. Coincidentally, that person also turned to look at her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13-14. Don't worry, she doesn't like me. It was the girl who was brewing medicine in the small kitchen. Gu Yundong's gaze met hers. A different expression appeared on the other party's expressionless face. She raised her chin slightly and then looked away as if nothing had happened. Gu Yundong. She finally understood why this woman often sized her up in the small kitchen. Gu Yundong did not respond. She turned around and entered the cabin. On the other hand, the lady was slightly stunned. Then she sneered. Shao Qingyuan quickly ended the topic and followed her into the cabin. As soon as he entered, he realized that the other 3 were already eating. No one was waiting for him. Shao Qingyuan was stunned. He did not say anything and sat beside Gu Yundong. "Hungry?" "Not really. But it's getting late. I didn't know how long you'd be chatting with others. If you come back too late, well, I'll have cold food. The temperature is so low now." Shao Qingyuan was surprised. She saw him chatting with someone? Shao Wan was especially good at reading people's expressions. When he saw that the atmosphere was not right, he quickly picked up his food and stood up. "I'll go back to my room to eat." Although Tong Shuitao was a little slow because of seasickness, she also got up and left unsteadily. The cabin door closed, leaving the two of them alone in the room. Shao Qingyuan smiled and hugged Gu Yundong's waist. "Since you saw me talking to them, why didn't you go over and meet them?" "Why should I? There was a beauty beside us." Shao Qingyuan was stunned again. Then, he looked at her with bright eyes. "Are you jealous?" Gu Yundong was speechless. She took the bowl that belonged to him and stuffed it into his hands. No. She was very reasonable. Why would she be jealous of such an unfounded thing? However, Shao Qingyuan was very happy. He was not in a hurry to eat. He placed the bowl back on the table and began to talk about the identity of the person just now. That person is an imperial physician from the capital. An imperial physician in the capital? Shao Qingyuan nodded. He's Imperial Physician Cui, who's in charge of vaccination in the Heading Prefecture. Now that the deadline to return to the capital is close, he's naturally on the ship back to the capital. That girl is his daughter and has been learning medicine from Imperial Physician Cui. No wonder she knew Shao Qingyuan. The imperial physicians from the capital should have people protecting them, right? Because of the special situation, Shao Qingyuan didn't have any guards protecting him. There are indeed two, but I don't know where they are. Usually, the guards don't interfere with imperial physician Cuis matters. They only appear when he encounters danger. Gu Yundong glanced at him. "Are you very familiar with Imperial Physician Cui?" "Not really." Imperial Physician Cui and Imperial Physician Song are friends, so we met a few times. This time, we greeted each other. "Then Miss Cui, does she like you?" Shao Qingyuan raised his eyebrows and suddenly fell silent for a moment, as if he was considering how to answer this question. Gu Yundong pinched him. "Is it that difficult?" "It's not difficult," Shao Qingyuan immediately replied. Imperial Physician Cui did vaguely mention marriage, but after knowing that I already had a fiancé, he didn't mention it again. As for Miss Cui, he frowned and said affirmatively, "She doesn't like me." "Are you sure?" "Don't worry, she doesn't like me." Back then, when she found out that I proposed the cowpox vaccination method, she even scolded me for being boorish and lacking medical ethics. Do you think she likes me? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 13-15, None of Your Business. Gu Yundong. She might not have liked him previously, but after the success of the cowpox vaccination method, it was hard to say if Miss Cui liked Shao Qingyuan. However, only she knew this the best. Gu Yundong did not say anything else. She just reached out and pinched his face. "But your face is getting more and more attractive. I might really have to hide you one day." "I want to hide you too." Shao Qingyuan lowered his head and pressed down. "I have no one else." "Really?" Shao Qingyuan smiled. His wife did not seem to know how charming she was. Not to mention the people far away, just Duan Qian, whom she had recently met in Wanqing Prefecture. When that kid first saw Gu Yundong after he woke up, the surprise in his eyes was very obvious. Later, when he saw her husband, he hid the feelings in his eyes. However, Shao Qingyuan was a sharp person. How could he not tell? If Duan Qian had not been gentlemanly enough to keep his distance knowing that Gu Yundong was married, Shao Qingyuan would never have cooperated with him. However, he and Duan Qian had a tacit understanding. There was no need to tell Yundong about this. Eat. Gu Yundong did not dwell on the matter of Imperial Physician Cui and his daughter. She rested after eating. She continued to do her own thing, but the atmosphere on the ship was obviously different from the previous 2 days. There were more and more voices about Miss Cuis Bodhisattva Heart. Most of these people had taken Miss Cuis seasickness medicine after they got seasickness. Gu Yundong only shook her head when she heard that. The effects of seasickness did not last long. They had taken the medicine today, but if they did not go ashore tomorrow, they would still vomit uncomfortably. Miss Cui might be able to take care of things for a while, but could it be that she could always provide medicine for free? Did she have it? Gu Yundong smiled and turned to enter the kitchen. Unexpectedly, Miss Cui was already there. She was still sitting in front of the medicine jar, making the medicine. Seeing her come in, she was slightly stunned for a moment before continuing to work. Gu Yundong did her own thing, but Miss Cui slowly began to lose her composure. From time to time, she would raise her head and size her up. But since she did not speak, Gu Yundong did not speak either. It was as if she was the one who was impatient. She was not the one with ulterior motives. As expected, not long after, Miss Cui couldn't help but ask, "You're Shao Qingyuan's countryside wife?" Countryside wife? This form of address did not seem wrong. Gu Yundong turned around and wiped her hands on her apron. This action indeed made Miss Cui frown. Gu Yundong found it funny. "Miss Cui, what's the matter?" Miss Cui. After pondering these words carefully for a moment, Miss Cui suddenly looked a little happier. "It seems that Shao Qingyuan has mentioned me to you." Gu Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. "What exactly do you want?" Miss Cui's face returned to its expressionless state. "You seem to be very good at cooking. You make 3 meals a day quite sumptuously. Do you know how to cook since you were young? Shao Qingyuan seems to be very satisfied with your culinary skills." Gu Yundong would be a fool if he did not understand the meaning behind her words. Didn't she just say that she was a countryside girl who was useless except for cooking? She could only serve men in such a way? Gu Yundong smiled and said slowly and elegantly, "What business is it of yours? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 13:16. Gu Yundong is an old woman. Cui Lan's expression froze. She looked at Gu Yundong in disbelief. "You? Unbearably vulgar, simply unbearably vulgar." This woman was indeed a country bumpkin who could not be shown off. Although Shao Qingyuan was also a country bumpkin in the past, he knew that he was motivated and daring. He was bold and would only continue to advance in the future. His future was limitless. But what about the woman in front of her? She had been observing her for 2 days. For the past 2 days, this woman had been wearing gray clothes and staying in this small kitchen all day to show off her pitiful culinary skills. She didn't work hard at all to be worthy of Shao Qingyuan. Other than cooking, eating and sleeping, she would occasionally go to the deck to enjoy the breeze. What was even more unbelievable was that she clearly had a maidservant by her side, but the maidservant had been hiding inside and slacking off because of seasickness. She did not say, scold, or sell her. She actually had to serve her food. A woman like Gu Yundong could not keep up with Shao Qingyuan at all. Even a maidservant could climb over her head and lord over her. If she did not have the ability to manage the servants, wouldn't Shao Qingyuan's backyard be in chaos in the future? Cui Lan felt wronged and indignant for Shao Qingyuan. In the end, it all turned into heartache. If they hadn't been engaged long ago, why would Shao Qingyuan marry such an unbearable wife? Gu Yundong did not know that the woman in front of her had a dark expression, and her heart was already in turmoil. She had been belittled to the point of being useless. She felt refreshed after saying those words. She ignored Cui Lan and continued to cook. However, after a long time of mental preparation, Cui Lan spoke to her again. "Miss Gu." She suddenly extended her hand. "On account of the fact that I know Shao Qingyuan, I advise you to change yourself. This is the rouge cream I concocted myself. After applying it on your face, it will make your face pale and tender. You won't become an old woman." Gu Yundong was speechless. Ha! What was this girl thinking? Her face was originally very fair and tender. It was much better than yours. All right? Just as she thought this, a surprised voice came from outside. "Miss Cui, can I buy a box?" Gu Yundong looked up and saw that the maid whom she knew earlier was looking at Cui Lan happily. She looked a little embarrassed. "Miss Cui is a doctor. Your rouge cream is definitely the best. Can I buy 2 boxes?" "Of course." Cui Lan nodded. "We're all women. We should help each other." Then, she looked at Gu Yundong. "Miss Gu, do you want it? I won't take your money." Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. So that was the case. Cui Lan looked expressionless and straightforward, but she was not unfamiliar with tricks. Gu Yundong glanced at the rouge ointment in her hand and then at the maid. The servant girl was looking at Gu Yundong enviously. After all, Cui Lan did not accept her money. She urged Gu Yundong, "Mrs. Shao, quickly accept it. Don't let Dr. Xia's good intentions down." Gu Yundong smiled and said to Cui Lan, "Sure, but although this is Dr. Sui's kind intentions, I can't take it for free. I'll buy it with silver too." As she spoke, she searched her body but could not find any silver. She was instantly vexed. "I didn't bring any silver. I'll go back and get it now. Dr. Cui, wait for me for a while. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 13:17. In that bunch of cow dung with that. Gu Yundong put all the dishes into the food box and walked out of the kitchen. However, just as she stepped out, she suddenly stopped. She turned to look at Cui Lan and said in confusion, "By the way, there's a question I've been wanting to ask." "What is it?" Gu Yundong smiled innocently. "Since Dr. Cui knows that I'm married and that my husband's surname is Shao, why do you keep calling me Miss Gu? If you hadn't called me just now, I wouldn't have noticed. I heard that Dr. Cui's family is also a big family in the capital. I've never been to the capital. I don't know if the rules there are different from what I know." Cui Lan's expression suddenly froze, and so did the servant girl, Yuer. Yuer was a maid from a rich family, after all. She knew all the twists and turns. After hearing Gu Yundong's words, the way she looked at Cui Lan changed. What did she mean by the rules in the capital were different? There was no one in the capital who called a married woman Mississippi. They were not her family. Cui Lan tightened her grip on the rouge ointment, but her voice was still cold and emotionless. "It was a slip of the tongue. I saw that Mrs. Shao was young and in her prime, so I unknowingly called you Mississippi. I won't do it again in the future." "Dr. Cui, why are you saying that I'm young again? You just said that I need your rouge cream to not become an old woman." Cui Lan's face twitched slightly. Was this woman really stupid or was she pretending to be stupid? Women should still take precautions. Gu Yundong was enlightened. She nodded. "You're right." Then she left. After leaving, she did not come back. She and Shao Qingyuan ate dinner happily. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao's food were brought to their rooms. After eating and clearing the dishes, Gu Yundong crossed her arms and stared at Shao Qingyuan from head to toe. The latter felt an inexplicable chill run down his spine under her gaze. "What's wrong?" Gu Yundong snorted. "And you say you're not a femme fatale?" Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and said, "That Miss Cui is very indignant on your behalf. You're outstanding and capable, while I only know how to cook. She thinks that you're like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung after marrying me. In that pile of cow dung." Shao Qingyuan frowned. "She said that about you? I'll look for her." Was there something wrong with this Cui girl that made her wife unhappy? Shao Qingyuan stood up and walked out. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong suddenly stretched out her leg and pressed it against the door, blocking him. She tilted her head and snorted. "What's the hurry?" Shao Qingyuan lowered his head and held her ankle with his right hand. He moved it up her calf and carried her to sit on the bed. He hugged her waist and said, "You're not cow dung. I am. Without you, I would have been trampled to pieces. All right, stop talking." She had just finished her meal and did not want to discuss such a smelly topic, even though she was the one who brought up the cow dung first. "If Miss Cui provokes you, I'll go to Imperial Physician Cui and explain. Anyway, we don't have much of a relationship." "No need." Gu Yundong only wanted him to make a statement. She would not really blame Shao Qingyuan. Not to mention, "I want to see what Miss Cui wants to do. It's a good opportunity for me to practice in advance." "Practice? What practice?" Shao Qingyuan was puzzled. Gu Yundong smiled and did not answer. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 13:18. Coming to the door practicing, of course, was to compete with the girls from these rich families in advance. Based on the current information, Brother Shao's family should be either rich or noble. She did not know if they were easy to get along with. If there was someone difficult to deal with, wouldn't she have to get used to it first? Shao Qingyuan raised his eyebrows, not quite understanding. However, even if Gu Yundong told him not to care about this matter, when Imperial Physician Cui came to visit or invited him to their cabin, Shao Qingyuan still refused. Imperial physician Cui felt that it was a pity at first, but after a few more times, he became dissatisfied with Shao Qingyuan. He felt that if a young man started to be arrogant and rude without taking his senior seriously, he would probably not be able to go far in the future. As for Yundong, she deliberately did not go to the small kitchen from before and changed to another place to continue cooking. As a result, she did not see Miss Cui for 2 days. On the 3rd day, Miss Cui could not hold back and knocked on Yundong's cabin door. As soon as the door opened, she looked inside. Miss Cui's eyes were filled with disappointment and relief when she didn't see Shao Qingyuan. Yundong stood at the door and saw her expression clearly. "Miss Cui, why are you here?" "Mrs. Ch." Cui Lan took a deep breath and looked at Yundong. "Last time, you asked me for rouge ointment, but I didn't see you in the small kitchen. There were many girls who bought rouge ointment these 2 days. I only have 2 boxes on hand, so I came to ask you if you still want it." Yundong blinked. After a moment, she came to a realization. She slapped her forehead and said, "Look at me. I forgot about this that day. When I carried the food box back to my room, my husband happened to be talking to me about something. Once he started talking, it was endless. Didn't I forget about this? When I thought about it later, it was already the next day. I thought that it would be fine. It wouldn't be good to look for him again." Cui Lan said, "Really? Then why did Mrs. Shao change the kitchen these 2 days?" "Sigh, it's all because of my husband. Recently, he's become more and more picky. He said that the food I cooked 2 days ago always had the smell of medicine, and he ate as if he was drinking medicine. I thought that it was because Miss Cui was brewing medicine at the side. That's why I changed the kitchen." Cui Lan was speechless. She actually had a good reason? Yundong tilted her head. "I don't want Miss Cui's rouge ointment. My husband doesn't like me to put too much makeup on my face. I have to let you down." Cui Lan clenched her fists slightly. This woman kept calling him husband, as if others did not know that their relationship was great. However, there was a saying that went, the more a woman lacked something, the more she cared about it, and the more she would show off. She kept mentioning how Shao Qingyuan doted on her and loved her. Wasn't it because she wasn't confident? She narrowed her eyes and sized up Yundong. She had thought that this was an ignorant village woman, but now it seemed that she had some tricks up her sleeve. It was just that these methods were not presentable and she could only show off. Cui Lan knew that she was not as eloquent as Yundong, but her brain was better than hers. Since Mrs. Shao doesn't want it, I'll take it back. As expected, she simply put away the rouge cream and turned around to leave. Yundong stood at the door of the cabin and watched her leave with a smile. Only when Cui Lan had completely disappeared did she turn around and prepare to close the cabin door. Unexpectedly, 2 people happened to walk over from the corridor in front. As they walked, they turned their heads to look in Cui Lan's direction. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1319. About Yundong. Yundong paused and heard the 2 of them talking softly. "This Dr. Cui is not very honest. She only provided the seasickness medicine for 2 days. If you ask her again, she'll claim that it's been used up. If she doesn't want to give it to you, so be it. Why did she have to pretend to be a kind person previously? You don't know, right? In the past 2 days, many girls on the ship have asked Dr. Cui to buy rouge ointment. That seasickness medicine is a business without money. This rouge ointment is the main source of money. Naturally, she's more willing to spend her efforts on it." "That's right. Those who need seasickness medicine are all poor people with no money. Those who have money have already prepared it themselves. Perhaps Dr. Cui has brewed medicine for 2 days and despised them." "Ha! Don't you have money too? Why are you asking her for seasickness pills?" "I think the effect is pretty good. It would be a waste not to take it." Their conversation gradually faded away. Yundong secretly shook her head and closed the cabin door. She had long said that Cui Lan would not gain anything by doing this. Actually, Yundong was not the only one who heard this conversation. Cui Lan was the same. The people who spoke even deliberately ran over to talk about her, ignoring her ugly expression. Cui Lan was furious. She had already suffered at Yundong's hands. She did not expect the people she had helped to be so ungrateful. These people were simply ingrates who did not know how to be grateful. She had been kind enough to think for them, but in the end, it was her fault. When those people received benefits from others, they would thank them profusely. When they lost these benefits, they would immediately turn hostile. These people would suffer retribution sooner or later. Cui Lan took a deep breath, tightened her grip on the rouge cream, and opened the stateroom door. When she entered, she saw Imperial Physician Cui grinding herbs with his head lowered. When he heard the sound, he looked up. "What's wrong, Laner? You don't look too good." "Nothing." Cui Lan shook her head. "I probably didn't sleep well last night. The cabin next door is too noisy." As she spoke, she helped Imperial Physician Cui pick herbs. When Imperial Physician Cui heard this, he quickly said, "Then let's switch rooms tonight. It's quiet here." "No need. It's not like it's noisy every day. The guest in the room next door might have had a nightmare last night. It's fine." Imperial Physician Cui did not insist and only let her rest. Cui Lan, on the other hand, did her own thing. She lowered her head and looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. After a long while, she finally looked up at Imperial Physician Cui and asked, "Father, have you seen Shao Qingyuan's wife?" Imperial Physician Cui was stunned for a moment. He thought for a moment and said, "I've seen her from afar once, but I've never spoken to her." "Why? Have you seen her?" "Yes, I have," Cui Lan said. "Father, do you know why Shao Qingyuan married his current wife back then?" Imperial Physician Cui stopped grinding herbs. He looked at his daughter and frowned slightly. Cui Lan was still the same. There was no expression on her face, but her eyes flickered slightly. Imperial Physician Cui asked, "Why are you asking this?" "Nothing. I'm just curious. I've seen that Madame Shao before. She looks really ordinary." Shao Qingyuan is no longer an ordinary farmer. It's not impossible to find a better one. Imperial Physician Cui looked at his daughter seriously for a moment and sighed in his heart. After a long time he said in a low voice, "I heard Imperial Physician Song talk about this Madame Shao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 13:20. Shao Qingyuan's kindness to Gu Yundong. Cui Lan immediately straightened her back slightly and looked at Imperial Physician Cui expectantly. Imperial Physician Cui put down the tool and recalled what Imperial Physician Song had said back then. At that time, Imperial Physician Song said with a nonchalant expression, "You're asking about Shao Qingyuan's fiancée? I've seen her before, of course I've seen her. That girl is a little pretty. She's a little smart, but she's not enough in front of me. She runs a small business herself and has a little money. Shao Qingyuan was especially poor in the past. Blah blah blah." At that time, Imperial Physician Song spoke in a scattered manner and said whatever came to his mind. At this moment, Imperial Physician Cui had to reorganize everything before he said. Imperial Physician Song said that this Miss Gu is a capable person. Her family does some small business. In the past, Shao Qingyuan's family was poor and he didn't have any relatives. It was a problem for him to eat 3 meals a day. Miss Gu and he were neighbors and helped each other. Later on, it was only natural for them to be engaged. I heard that Shao Qingyuan came to the capital to offer the cowpox vaccination method. This Miss Gu supported him wholeheartedly. Cui Lan pondered in her heart as she listened. Shao Qingyuan was very poor in the past and did not have enough to eat. Gu Yundong had helped him a lot. Rather than saying that he liked Gu Yundong, it would be more accurate to say that he was grateful. If he really liked Gu Yundong, why would Gu Yundong always emphasize on that? That was true. Shao Qingyuan was someone who knew how to repay kindness. Otherwise, she wouldn't have liked him. Therefore, it was impossible for Shao Qingyuan to give up on Gu Yundong. He was not a heartless man and would not do such an ungrateful thing. No wonder Gu Yundong had to personally go to the kitchen to cook. This was to remind Shao Qingyuan of her past kindness. Cui Lan frowned and her expression turned even uglier. Therefore, it was impossible for Shao Qingyuan to leave Gu Yundong. Then, what about the other way around? Cui Lan's hands had stopped moving at some point. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared out of the window, seemingly in a daze. Imperial Physician Cui sighed secretly. "Laner, Shao Qingyuan is already married. No matter what the reason is, he has a wife. You're so outstanding. After returning to the capital, father will definitely choose a good husband for you. Cui Lan suddenly came back to her senses. She immediately stood up and said, I know, father. What good husband? She was just an inconspicuous imperial physician's daughter. She was also a medical woman who appeared in public all day long. The young masters of the aristocratic families in the capital looked down on her. She did not care for them either. Cui Lan shook hands and left the cabin in a hurry. Imperial physician Cui opened his mouth but hesitated. He only had one daughter. Her mother had passed away early, and he was busy. When she was young, she had been bullied by servants, so she had developed the habit of being expressionless since she was young. Imperial physician Cui felt that he had mistreated her. In order to make up for it, he went along with her almost everything. However, Cui Lan had her own opinions since she was young and made her own decisions. For example, if she asked to study medicine, he would teach her. For example, when he was ordered to come to the Heading Prefecture this time, she also wanted to follow him to see the world, so he brought her here. But now, she seemed to have lost her heart to Shao Qingyuan. Imperial physician Cui did not know how to persuade her and could only remind her. He hoped that she could figure it out herself. In Imperial physician Cui's heart, his daughter was very outstanding. Perhaps she was unwilling to give up in such a short period of time, but she definitely would not do anything to destroy someone else's family. However, it was indeed a pity for Shao Qingyuan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1321. I have news of by Muzi. Imperial physician Cui was optimistic, but he did not know that after Cui Lan left the cabin, her eyes became brighter and brighter. A certain thought also became more and more determined. The passenger ship sailed for another day and stopped in the nearby prefectural city for half a day. When it set off again, the sky had already darkened. Cui Lan watched with her own eyes as Shao Qingyuan and Shao Wen carried a basket of small fish to the bow of the ship. She took a deep breath and walked to Gu Yundong's cabin door. She raised her hand and knocked. Gu Yundong had just finished dinner and was reading a book while waiting for Shao Qingyuan to come back. She planned to fry some fish later as snacks, and she did not expect someone to knock on the door. She was stunned for a moment. After thinking for a while, she guessed who the person might be. She opened the door and saw Cui Lan, who had no expression on her face. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Dr. Cui, what's the matter? I want to talk to you alone. Gu Yundong turned sideways. Shall we talk inside? No need. It's the same if we talk outside. Gu Yundong pondered for a moment and nodded. All right, I'll get a cloak. She entered the room and came back with her cloak. She locked the cabin door and followed Cui Lan. It was actually a little cold now, especially since it was evening. The temperature had dropped sharply and they were on the river, so the wind was a little strong. Gu Yundong looked at Cui Lan walking in front of her and shrinking her neck. She could not help but laugh secretly. Cui Lan quickly led her to the corner of the deck. There were some wooden barrels and sacks piled there, so no one came except the crew. If they wanted to say something in private, it was appropriate here. Cui Lan stopped in her tracks and looked at the ripples at the bottom of the boat. She narrowed her eyes and turned to ask Gu Yundong, I have a question for you, Mrs. Shao. Ask away. Is Mrs. Shao sincere about Shao Qingyuan? This question was so stupid that Gu Yundong did not want to answer. Of course I'm sincere. Cui Lan's lips curled up. Is that so? If you're sincere, then you're willing to do anything for Shao Qingyuan, right? Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. What exactly is Dr. Cui trying to say? Mrs. Shao has always said that she has a deep love for her husband. Shao Qingyuan shouldn't have hidden anything from Mrs. Shao, right? Gu Yundong found it funny. Why did Cui Lan look like she knew Shao Qing better than his wife did? She and Shao Qingyuan had clearly not spoken much, but she had placed herself in a very subtle position. Gu Yundong smiled and nodded. Yes, he doesn't hide anything from me. In that case, Mrs. Shao also knows that Shao Qingyuan is looking for a medicinal herb called by Muzi? Gu Yundong suddenly looked up at her. Her gaze instantly became exceptionally sharp. By Muzi? She did not expect to hear the name by Muzi from Cui Lan's mouth. Of course, She knew that brother Shao was looking for by Muzi. Furthermore, this by Muzi was for her mother. Cui Lan glanced at Gu Yundong and looked away. It seems that Mrs. Shao knows. By Muzi is an extremely rare medicinal ingredient. Mostly, it is used for brain diseases and is very precious. Currently, only a few people in the entire Dajin dynasty have this medicine. Even if someone has this medicine, there are too few people who know about it. It can be said to be priceless. As she spoke, Cui Lan looked at Gu Yundong. Shao Qingyuan really needed this medicine. When he came to the capital, I saw with my own eyes that after he found out about Bai Muzi's whereabouts, he couldn't wait to personally confirm it. Because of this, he was almost killed on the spot as a thief. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1322. This herb is for me. Gu Yundong was shocked. She did not know about this. Shao Qingyuan had never mentioned it to her after he returned. This idiot had promised that he would not hide anything from her. He had also said that no matter what happened, his life should be the top priority. However, Cui Lan was not done speaking. There was a noble in the capital who looked down on Shao Qingyuan. When he found out that Shao Qingyuan was looking for by Muzi, he specially released the news that he had this medicinal herb and could sell it to Shao Qingyuan at a high price. The condition was that Shao Qingyuan had to be his slave for a year. Shao Qingyuan agreed without hesitation. Although that noble later found it boring and did not continue to joke like this, it was true that Shao Qingyuan was willing to be someone's slave for by Muzi. Gu Yundong's expression turned ugly. Shao Qingyuan, you actually hid this from me. Seeing her like this, Cui Lan's lips curled up slightly. However, she quickly calmed down. She looked at Gu Yundong. It seems that Mrs. Shao doesn't know about these things. I thought that husband and wife would be honest with each other about everything. Gu Yundong suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and looked at Cui Lan coldly. Her patience was disappearing bit by bit. From what you're saying, you seem to know about Bai Muzi. Cui Lan nodded. I do have news about Bai Muzi, but whether I'm willing to tell you or not is my business. What can I do for you to reveal Bai Muzi's whereabouts? Cui Lan said, you must leave Shao Qingyuan. Ha! Although Gu Yundong had guessed that this was probably the result, she did not expect her to say it so shamelessly. You know how badly Shao Qingyuan wants this herb. He's such a proud person, but he didn't hesitate to be a servant for this herb. It can be seen how important this herb is to him. It's so important that he's willing to pay any price. If you treat him sincerely, you should help him. As long as you leave him, I'll offer this herb with both hands. Gu Yundong was a little tired of this condition. Cui Lan said, I'll give you 2 days to consider. Actually, think about it carefully. Even if you don't leave Shao Qingyuan, as long as I say that I have news of Bai Muzi, I think he will agree to any of my requests, including leaving you. If that's the case, why did you come to me instead of looking for him? I just want you to be more dignified. You can naturally tell which is better for you, being abandoned or giving up. It would be strange if Gu Yundong believed her. Cui Lan liked Shao Qingyuan, but she wanted to leave a good impression on him, so she wanted to start with her. This was clearly an extremely disgusting act. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and looked at Cui Lan's condescending gaze, who felt that her existence was hindering Shao Qingyuan's future. She could not help but want to slap her. Mrs. Shao, think about it carefully. If there are any problems, you can come to me. Perhaps I can give you some ideas. After Cui Lan finished speaking, she wanted to turn around and return to the cabin. But just as she turned around, Gu Yundong's voice came from behind. Cui Lan. She did not call her Dr. Cui anymore. Then do you know why Shao Qingyuan is so desperate for this herb? Cui Lan turned around and saw Gu Yundong's mocking smile gradually deepen. She heard her say word by word, because this herb is for me. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1323. Pushing Gu Yundong into the water, Cui Lan suddenly raised her head and widened her eyes. She looked at Gu Yundong, who was laughing at her, in disbelief. She shook her head. Impossible. If you don't believe me, you can ask my husband. The disdain in Gu Yundong's eyes became even more obvious. Why don't you think about it? Why would Shao Qingyuan want that medicinal herb? You also said that he was alone. Who did he give that medicinal herb to? For himself? Or for his own medicinal herb shop? But have you ever seen a medicinal merchant willing to give his life for a medicinal herb? Cui Lan took a step back, her face pale. That's right, she didn't expect this. She actually didn't expect this. Gu Yundong laughed. Now, do you understand how much my husband values me? If I leave him, your medicine will be useless to him. Cui Lan's breathing quickened. She stared fixedly at Gu Yundong, as if she wanted to see any signs of lying on her face. But she did not. Gu Yundong's eyes were filled with contempt and confidence. She was not afraid of anyone asking Shao Qingyuan. She was not afraid of this threat at all. Cui Lan's fingers dug into her palms, almost causing her to bleed. She suddenly thought of something and said, "In that case, you're the one who wants by Muzi. All right, if you leave Shao Qingyuan, I'll give by Muzi to you." Was she trying everything she could in a moment of desperation? Gu Yundong shook her head in amusement. Do I look like such an idiot? You! Gu Yundong could not be bothered to talk to her. She turned around and was about to return to the cabin. Unexpectedly, just as she turned her head, she felt a gust of wind behind her. Gu Yundong turned her head abruptly and saw Cui Lan reaching out to push her with a ferocious expression. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and shifted her feet. She grabbed the wooden bucket beside her with one hand and Cui Lan with the other, throwing her out of the deck. Ah! Cui Lan screamed, her eyes filled with fear. The next moment, she realized that her entire body was suspended on the edge of the ship. The only thing that kept her from falling was Gu Yundong's hand. Cui Lan trembled in fear. She could only hold Gu Yundong's hand tightly and shout in a trembling voice, "Pull me up! Pull me up!" Gu Yundong lay on the deck, her right foot hooked onto the hemp rope not far away. Her expression was leisurely and she was not in a hurry at all. "Pull you up?" Gu Yundong sneered. "You want to push me into the water, you want to kill me, and now you expect me to pull you up? Do you think I'm a good person who repays evil with kindness? I didn't do it on purpose. I just slipped. I didn't want to harm you." Cui Lan hurriedly denied. She had been impulsive just now. It was really uncomfortable to be hanging like this. Cui Lan's voice was intermittently blown by the wind. "I'm a doctor. I've always helped the world and never thought of harming anyone. Really, I'm just threatening you. I don't want to kill anyone. I don't believe you. You!" Cui Lan's body swayed. "Gu Yundong, if you let go, you'll be killing someone. You have to pay with your life for killing someone. Moreover, my father is an imperial physician and he's an official of the imperial court. If you harm me, your entire family will be implicated by you. Your husband won't want you either. It won't do you any good." Gu Yundong sighed. This girl was still threatening her even at this point. She really wouldn't shed a tear until she saw the coffin. "Look at how nervous you are. I didn't say I would kill you." She smiled, but the malice in her eyes was obvious. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1324. You're so scheming, however, as long as I let go gently, you will fall into the river. Don't worry, you won't die for the time being after falling. I will immediately ask the crew to jump down and save you. Gu Yundong spoke slowly and meaningfully. What else did Cui Lan not understand? Yes, as long as she did not drown, Gu Yundong would not kill anyone. When she was rescued by the rough crew, she would be drenched in public and her innocence would be lost. She would suffer from rumors. If she could not marry into a good family, even her father would be implicated by her. He would be pointed at and his future would be affected. Cui Lan's expression changed. She looked up at Gu Yundong in disbelief. "You're so sinister. Thank you for your compliment." Gu Yundong accepted her praise with a smile. Cui Lan took a deep breath and suddenly shouted, "Help, someone is killing." Before she could finish speaking, she felt Gu Yundong loosen her grip. Cui Lan immediately screamed, "Ah! What are you doing? Continue shouting. See if it's faster for you to call for help or if it's faster for me to throw you down." Cui Lan instantly shut her mouth and did not dare to make a sound. She regretted choosing this position. No one came here, and there were buckets and sacks blocking the way. Besides, the sky was dark now. Coupled with the sound of water, no one could hear them. Cui Lan felt like she couldn't hold on any longer. Her hands felt like they were about to break. She was extremely afraid. She looked up at Gu Yundong, who still looked calm, and hated her. "What are you trying to do?" Gu Yundong smiled. It was finally time to start negotiating. "I don't know what I want to do either. After all, you were the one who pushed me first. I only did this because of my quick wit. I wasn't prepared to ask you to compensate me in advance. Of course, you can also think about what bargaining chips you have to convince me to pull you up." Wasn't the hint obvious enough? As expected, Cui Lan's expression changed slightly. "I don't have much leverage." Gu Yundong smiled. This girl was still being stubborn at this juncture. "All right." Gu Yundong pried her fingers off her wrist one by one. Cui Lan was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "By Muzi, I have news for you about By Muzi." Gu Yundong stopped. That was more obedient. She looked like she was weighing whether this bargaining chip was big enough. "All right, since you want to tell me so badly, I'll listen. If I'm satisfied, I'll pull you up." "What if you go back on your word?" Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. "But you only have one choice now." Cui Lan took a deep breath and her expression became even uglier. Yes, she had no other choice now. She would take a gamble or be thrown down. "Okay, I'll tell you." "You'd better tell me the truth." Gu Yundong smiled. "If I hear anything amiss, I'll throw you down." "You?" Cui Lan pursed her lips and gritted her teeth. "By Muzi is in the capital." Gu Yundong loosened her grip and Cui Lan said anxiously, "I'm not lying." "This is very strange. If you knew that By Muzi was in the capital, you should have told Shao Qingyuan long ago. Why didn't you tell him back then? He wasn't married at that time. It should have been easier for you to succeed at that time, right?" Cui Lan hurriedly said, "I didn't know long ago. I was only informed when I arrived at the heading prefecture. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1325. You're Simply Trash, continue. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Yes, if she only found out when she reached the heading prefecture, she would indeed not have the chance to tell Shao Qingyuan. Cui Lan was dizzy from the wind and Gu Yundong's scare. She could not think of a perfect lie, so she told the truth. "I saved the life of the grandson of a rich family in the heading prefecture. That rich family was very grateful to me and my father. Later on, I accidentally heard him mention By Muzi. I thought about how Shao Qingyuan had put in a lot of effort to search for this medicinal herb. That rich family saw that I urgently needed this medicinal herb. In order to repay me for saving his life, the master of the family said that his son in the capital had one. He could write a letter to his son and tell him what had happened. His son would definitely give By Muzi to me." "Which family in the capital?" Cui Lan paused for a moment and said, "The Yen family, a tea merchant family in the capital." "Tea merchants? What about the letter?" "I don't have it," Cui Lan replied. "Old Master Yen directly wrote it and sent it to the capital. The Yen family also knows my father's identity. After we return to the capital, the Yen family will naturally send By Muzi to our residence." Speaking of this, Cui Lan finally had a hint of smugness on her face. "Look, so what if you know about these things? You still can't get By Muzi. You already know. Can you pull me up now?" Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and suddenly raised her voice. "I'm done asking." Cui Lan was stunned. In the next moment, 2 footsteps came from the deck. When one of them walked up to her, she finally saw who it was. Shao Qingyuan? A look of surprise flashed across Cui Lan's face. "Shao Qingyuan, you saw it. Your wife wants to kill me. She's vicious. You should see her true colors. Hurry up and pull me up." Shao Qingyuan glanced sideways at Cui Lan and did not say a word to her. He only said to Gu Yundong, "When I returned to the cabin, I realized that the door was locked, so I came here to look for you. I happened to see Imperial Physician Suis guard coming over, so I stopped him. Since you're done asking, let's go back." Your hand should hurt after holding her for so long. I'll rub it for you. When Cui Lan heard this, her face was filled with disbelief. Not only did Shao Qingyuan hear it from the beginning, but he even stopped the guard who was protecting her and her father and daughter from saving her. Cui Lan felt cold all over. This shouldn't happen. Shao Qingyuan shouldn't be like this. He clearly had a chivalrous heart. He should be clearly distinguishing between right and wrong. How did this happen? Gu Yundong glanced at her and let go. Just as Cui Lan thought she was going to fall, a rope suddenly flew over and instantly wrapped around her waist. With a little force, it pulled her onto the deck. Cui Lan was still in shock. She knelt on the ground and panted heavily. After a long time, she looked up and only saw Shao Qingyuan supporting Gu Yundong's back as he left. Cui Lan's eyes were bloodshot and filled with hatred. The guard beside her lowered his eyes slightly and said in a low voice, "Miss Cui, you should return to the cabin." Cui Lan suddenly turned her head and glared at him angrily. "Where were you? The Emperor asked you to protect us. Is this how you protect us? Shao Qingyuan stopped you just like that. You're simply useless." The guard narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "I'm under orders to protect Imperial Physician Cui, not you." With that, he turned around and left. He was an Imperial Guard and was only temporarily acting as Imperial Physician Cui's guard. It was not Cui Lan's turn to point and scold him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1326. Arriving in the capital, Cui Lan was dumbfounded. She sat on the deck in a daze and could not recover for a long time. It was not until a gust of wind blew that she shuddered violently. She staggered to her feet and stumbled back to her cabin. After Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan returned to the house, she narrowed her eyes and settled the score with him. "Why didn't you tell me about what happened in the capital? What about almost losing his life by Muzi? What about being threatened to be someone's slave for a year? What if it did happen? What then?" Shao Qingyuan hugged her and shook her gently. "It's all in the past. I'm not angry anymore." "Not in the past." Gu Yundong was very angry. "You always say that I deal with danger alone. What about you? I promise there won't be a next time." Shao Qingyuan immediately admitted his mistake. "I swear that if I take the risk alone next time I will." "Shut up." Shao Qingyuan obediently remained silent. He looked down and saw that she was still angry. He lowered his head and kissed her. "I'll definitely tell you everything in the future." Gu Yundong glared at him fiercely before slowly calming down. But when she thought of Cui Lan's words, Gu Yundong fell silent again. After a long while, she asked, "What do you think about Bai Muzi? If Cui Lan is right, the Yen family will give the herbs to the Cui family. We can only start from the Cui family." The problem was that after this incident, the Cui family had already fallen out with them. Ordinary transactions were impossible, so they could only think of another way. The two of them looked at each other and temporarily put this matter aside. Unexpectedly the next day, Gu Yundong heard that Cui Lan was sick. It was probably because of the cold wind last night that she caught a cold. Imperial Physician Cui had never come to look for them either. It was unknown if Cui Lan did not tell him the reason or if the god had told him the truth. In short, Cui Lan's illness made Gu Yundong's life on the ship more stable. After 5 to 6 days, Cui Lan finally became more energetic, but she did not step out of the cabin door again. Gu Yundong was happy and at ease. Tong Shuitao seemed to have adapted to life on the ship. Her expression gradually improved and she could go out to do things. When she heard about the matter between Gu Yundong and Cui Lan, she was especially angry and regretful. She could not stand beside Miss and help her kick the B*T into the river. After another 10 days, the passenger ship finally arrived at the port. Pumin Port was a port 50 miles away from the capital. From here, one had to take a carriage for half a day to enter the city. When the passenger ship stopped, it was not long after dawn. Shao Wan was the first to get off the ship and hire a carriage. He moved the things in the cabin to the carriage first. In any case, they did not have many things left after using up a lot of stuff during the trip. Gu Yundong kept everything that could be hidden in her space. When they got off the ship, they happened to see Imperial Physician Cui coming out of the cabin with Cui Lan. When she saw Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan, Cui Lan's expression turned ferocious. She quickly turned around and followed Imperial Physician Cui down the deck. Looks like Cui Lan doesn't have any improper thoughts about you. It's just that she seems to hate you because of love. It's better to hate me. Gu Yundong could not help but laugh and followed him down the deck. After getting on the carriage, the group headed straight for the capital. It was not until evening that they entered the city gate. It was already a little late, so the few of them found an inn to rest. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1327. Buying a house in the capital. The atmosphere in the capital was indeed different from other places. At night, the streets were still lively. Even on such an ordinary day, there was still a night market. However, according to Shao Qingyuan, the night market in the capital was opened within the specified range and time. It was not completely free. Gu Yundong and the others rested at the inn for the night. The next morning, they set off to look for a house. Of course, it was Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan who did it. Shao Wan and Tong Shuitao were sent by Shao Qingyuan to inquire about the Yan family. Shao Wan had followed Shao Qingyuan to the capital before and was quite familiar with it. After they left, Gu Yundong and Xia Ling went to look for the broker. There were many brokers in the capital. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan had some understanding when he came to the capital last time. He knew which broker had a good reputation, so they went straight there. Unfortunately, houses in the capital were too scarce, and they were especially expensive. In particular, some large houses with 4 to 5 yards were not easy to buy at all. Even if they were available, they were in very remote places. Therefore, Gu Yundong set his sights on the 3-yard houses. Such a size was perfect. It would not look empty, or too crowded with a few more people. Gu Yundong explained her request. The broker picked out 2 for her. Gu Yundong followed him to look at the 2 houses. One was in Hatai Alley, which was relatively close to the downtown area. It was a little noisy, but it was very convenient to go anywhere. There was another one on Donggu Street. This place was considered quiet, but the broker said honestly that there were several families in this area who had mistresses here. Speaking of benefits, most of the mistresses were from powerful and rich families. If she accidentally bumped into them later, she might even get to know some big shot. But Gu Yundong and the others did not need such an opportunity. There were many mistresses, and there was also a lot of trouble. Therefore, Gu Yundong finally chose the house on Hatai Alley. The house here was relatively old. Many of the older generation lived here. Occasionally, a few officials with low official positions would buy the house here. Gu Yundong asked for the price, and the broker gave her the real price, 6,000 taels. Gu Yundong's heart ached terribly. The housing prices in the capital were simply unbelievable. A house with 3 yards cost 6,000 taels. As for the 4 courtyard and 5 courtyard houses, they cost almost 10,000 taels. If there was something bigger, it would cost at least 20,000 to 30,000 taels. There were indeed many rich people in the capital. Gu Yundong sighed and took out the silver with heartache. That person was also very fast. In the afternoon, he found the owner of the house to sign the deed with them and registered with the government. This house was hers. After coming out with the warm deed, Gu Yundong looked up at the plaque above her head and said to Shao Qingyuan, "I have to change this plaque to Shao residence later. That will be much more pleasing to the eye. Well, find someone to replace it tomorrow." Shao Qingyuan looked at her and the 2 of them laughed. "We still have to get someone to clean the house tomorrow. We also have to buy some things. When the time comes, we can move in directly. The greatest benefit is that this place is quite close to the shop Nie Shuang bought. When the house is ready, we'll go to the shop to take a look." The 2 of them chatted as they returned to the inn. It was already very late. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao were already waiting for them. After entering the room, the 4 of them ate something first before Shao Wen began to talk about the situation of the Yan family. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1328. Second Master Yan. The Yan family is indeed in Heading Prefecture. Master Yan, who is in the capital now, is the second son of the Yan family. He's 35 years old and is in charge of the business in the capital. Shao Wen told him everything he had found out. This Master Yen was called Yen Yihai and had been in the capital for many years. The grandson of the Yen family that Cui Lan had saved was the son of the eldest master of the Yen family, the nephew of Yen Yihai. When Gu Yundong heard this, she could not help but knock on the table. This is interesting. First Master Yan's son has been saved, but he wants second Master Yen to pay. Will he agree? How's the relationship between the two branches of the Yen family? Shao Wen chuckled. Madam is right. On the surface, the two brothers of the Yen family are indeed loving brothers. However, I specially asked around and found that this second Master Yen hasn't returned to Heading Prefecture for 2 years. However, his wife and children have gone back to visit the old man. Gu Yundong looked at Shao Qingyuan. Do you think Yen Yihai will willingly give by Muzi to the Cui family? Mostly not. So we still have to start with the Yen family? Shao Qingyuan nodded. However, since old Master Yen wrote a letter to Yen Yihai, even if it's for show, Yen Yihai won't openly disobey his father's orders. We still have to find out what he wants to do. Gu Yundong nodded. In fact, she felt that the possibility of getting by Muzi from the Yen family was higher than getting it from the Cui family. After all, Cui Lan had a grudge against them. After talking about Yen Yihai, Gu Yundong looked at Tong Shuitao. Where's Qin Wenjing? Lord Qin isn't in the capital. She had gone out today to find out about Qin Wenjing and Imperial Physician Song. Not in the capital? Tong Shuitao nodded. I heard that Mr. Qin went out to the capital to do something. I don't know when he'll be back. Mrs. Qin and Miss Qin are at home, but I heard that Miss Qin has been sick recently, so the Qin residence closed its doors and refused guests. Since that was the case, Gu Yundong would not disturb them. Imperial Physician Song has been in the palace for the past 2 days. I don't know the exact situation. She couldn't find out what was going on in the palace. Gu Yundong nodded to show that she understood. In any case, she had many things to do. It would not be too late to look for them after everything settled down. When Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao heard that they had already bought a house, they looked very excited. The next day, they happily ran to clean the house. However, the house was a 3-courtyard house. It was still a little big. Just the two of them were still too few. Gu Yundong inquired around the house and found 3 women to help tidy it up. She and Shao Qingyuan walked around the streets, planning to buy some things. This was Gu Yundong's first time in the capital. The streets in the capital were wider and more prosperous than in the Xuanhe prefecture. The main road in front of him could accommodate 4 carriages riding side by side. Gu Yundong looked at the shops along the street and walked over. They needed to buy a lot of things and had little time, so they did not have much chance to shop. They basically went straight to their destination. Beds, tables, chairs, and other furniture were needed. There were also pots, pans, rice, oil, and salt that were needed in the kitchen. There were also quilts, pillowcases, brain threads, and so on. They could slowly add the others that they did need for the time being. Gu Yundong bought everything she could and sent them to her house in Hatai Alley. Then, she went back with Shao Qingyuan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1329. Reminder. Unexpectedly, just as the two of them were about to reach the entrance of the alley, they suddenly bumped into a familiar person. That person was also stunned for a moment when he saw them. Then, he walked over. Dr. Shao. Shao Qingyuan nodded at him, greeted him, and brushed past him, planning to leave. That person was about to leave, but he suddenly stopped and said, Imperial Physician Cui entered the palace to meet the Emperor as soon as he returned. This person was the Imperial Guard who had protected Imperial Physician Cui and his daughter on the ship. Now that Imperial Physician Cui had returned to the capital safely, his mission was completed. This person left after saying this. Gu Yundong waited until his figure had completely disappeared before she asked, Are all the people in the capital so oblique? Couldn't he make it clearer? He clearly meant well, but if he met someone who wasn't quick-witted enough, they really wouldn't be able to figure it out. Shao Qingyuan led her into the alley. I don't have a relationship with him after all. We've only met once. It's already not bad that he reminded me of this. He told them that Imperial Physician Cui had gone to see the Emperor as soon as he returned to the capital. It was to report the vaccination in the Heading Prefecture. This was his duty as a subject. Although Shao Qingyuan did not have the status of an official imperial physician in the imperial hospital, he was in charge of the vaccination in the Shuanhe Prefecture. He was shouldering the mission given by the emperor. When he returned to the capital, he should have entered the palace to meet the emperor immediately. Unexpectedly, he stayed outside for 2 days without doing anything. Imperial physician Cui and Shao Qingyuan came back on the same boat. The emperor must have known that he had been in the capital for 2 days. If he delayed any longer, no matter how good the emperor's temper was, even if he knew that he did not know the rules of the imperial court and did not mind, others would be dissatisfied and report Shao Qingyuan. "Are you going to the palace tomorrow?" Gu Yundong asked. Shao Qingyuan nodded. "I do plan to enter the palace tomorrow." With his status, it was not enough for him to meet the emperor directly. He had to report to the head of the imperial hospital, Song Dejiang, before Song Dejiang brought him there. "I'll leave the house to you. I'll be back soon." "Yeah." The two of them walked to the entrance as they spoke. Some of the things they had bought had already been transported over. Shao Wen and Tong Shuitao were helping with the transportation. When they saw Gu Yundong and Gu Yundong, Tong Shuitao immediately ran over. "Miss, the room has been tidied up, and the bed and cabinet have arrived. Come in and take a look." Gu Yundong followed her in and was the first to see some old furniture and miscellaneous items piled up in the courtyard. There were some things here that were going to be sold, and some were going to be thrown away. Unexpectedly, a woman who was helping to clean the house suddenly came forward. She went to Gu Yundong's side and asked with a smile, "Madam Shao, you're back? And what's the matter?" "It's like this. Look at your bed, cabinet, and so on. You don't want the old ones anyway. Can I take them back?" Gu Yundong was stunned, but Tong Shuitao frowned and said, "I've already told you that those big items are for sale." "Sigh, look at what you're saying. Those things are all damaged. Otherwise, how could the previous owner bear to leave them behind? You just came to the capital and don't know the market in the capital. These things are not worth much money." As soon as the woman finished speaking, another woman behind her pulled her back. "All right, stop talking. These things are worth..." Before she could finish speaking, she was pushed by the woman from before. "Shut up. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1330. Let Gu Yundong do something good then. The woman continued to look at Gu Yundong. She smiled and said respectfully, "Madam Shao, you look like you're from a rich family. You don't care about this small sum of money. Why don't you do a good deed?" Gu Yundong found it funny and raised her eyebrows slightly. "Yesterday, after buying the house, I agreed to sell the bed and cabinet to the broker. Later, he will find a cart to take them away. So I can't give them to you. If you want them, you can have those things." She pointed to another pile of things to throw away. Actually, there were quite a few good things in that pile. For example, the damaged stools and chairs, as well as the cages and cabinets that had been bitten by rats. These were all ordinary wood things that could not be sold for much money. It was better to chop them up and burn them as firewood. However, if others took a fancy to it, they could naturally pull them away. Gu Yundong had some money now, so she would not mistreat herself if she could use good stuff. If she was still as poor as before, she would definitely move everything back home like a mouse. Unexpectedly, the auntie from before said with a look of disdain, "These are all broken. They can't be used at all. Why should I bring them back?" Gu Yundong smiled. "Then forget it." She raised her voice and called Tong Shuitao over. "I think the work is almost done. Let's settle the salary for the ants." The woman wanted to say something, but when she saw Shao Qingyuan, who seemed tall and cold, enter, she immediately stopped talking. However, she still looked at those things unwillingly and muttered something. Tong Shuitao quickly gave her money and sent her away. On the other hand, the woman who had stopped her earlier was at the back. After thinking about it, she hurriedly ran back and asked Gu Yundong in a low voice, "Madam Shao, do you really not want those over there?" Gu Yundong saw that she was a little embarrassed and then looked at her clothes, which were indeed a little more dilapidated than the other women's. She knew that her family was not very well off, so she nodded. "I don't want them. If Aunt likes them, you can bring them back to repair them for the children to play with." The woman was even more embarrassed, but she still thanked Gu Yundong repeatedly. Then I'll take them back. Yes, I'll get Shuitao to help you move them. She's strong. The woman wanted to refuse, but Tong Shuitao had already run over quickly and pulled the woman to see something. When the woman was done, Gu Yundong had basically cleaned up everything and got rid of the things she could throw and burn. Later on, the broker found a few people to transport the large items away. Those things were not worth much, only 5 taels of silver in total. Gu Yundong took the money to the market next door to buy some chicken, duck, and fish. At night, they cooked a sumptuous dinner. Although there were only 4 of them, they still had to celebrate the housewarming. Gu Yundong was still not used to sleeping in her new home. She only fell asleep after a long time at night. The next day, she woke up late. When she got up, Shao Qingyuan was already not at home. He had left with Shao Wan. Gu Yundong slowly got up and washed up before bringing Tong Shuitao out. They planned to go to the shop Nie Shuang bought today to take a look. Holding the address Nie Shuang had given her, Gu Yundong strolled towards the shop. However, halfway through, a carriage suddenly passed by her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1331. Cui Lan goes to the Yen residence. Gu Yundong turned her head slightly and saw the person sitting in the carriage. Was this fate? Tong Shuitao also saw it and asked softly, Miss, that was Miss Cui just now, right? Yes. Gu Yundong nodded. She looked in the direction where the carriage had disappeared and asked, Where is it going? Tong Shuitao thought for a moment and suddenly widened her eyes. She pointed in that direction and said, It's the Yen residence, Mississippi. Yen residence? Gu Yundong thought of her and Shao Qingyuan's guess. According to Cui Lan, the Yen residence would send by Muzi directly to the Cui residence. However, Cui Lan had personally gone to the Yen residence. Could it be that, as they had guessed, Second Master Yen did not want to give by Muzi to them, so he did not send him over? After all, Imperial Physician Cui and the others had been back for 2 days. Gu Yundong immediately became excited and hurriedly said to Tong Shuitao, Let's go to the Yen residence to take a look. Miss, we can't enter. Who said we're going in? Let's find a place nearby to sit and see if Cui Lan can get by Muzi. Tong Shuitao nodded repeatedly and immediately led Gu Yundong to the Yen residence. The Yen residence was located in a rather prosperous area in the capital. The Yen family was in the tea business and was a big family, so the house was built big and rich. Sure enough, Gu Yundong found a tea shop nearby. The shop was diagonally opposite the entrance of the Yen residence. She ordered 2 pots of tea and waited with Tong Shuitao while listening to gossip. Needless to say, there was a lot of gossip outside the Yen residence that was about the Yen family. Master Yan's youngest daughter rarely comes back after she gets married, right? She's just a concubine's daughter. Her life in the Yen family was difficult. Now that she's finally married to a good husband and is living a good life, why would she come back? I don't think so. Think about how this concubine's daughter married her husband back then. I heard that she didn't have a good life in her in-laws' family. Yes. I think I heard that the main wife's daughter of the Yen family took a fancy to her husband and was intercepted by this concubine's daughter. Therefore, this concubine's daughter was raised to be petty and ruthless. She specially did such shameless things. No way. That concubine's daughter of the Yen family is very timid. How dare she intercept her legitimate sister? The rumors were getting more and more unreliable. Someone asked the boss of the tea shop what happened. After all, he had opened a shop in front of the Yen family for a long time. The boss did not seem to intend to answer at first. He did not want to offend the Yen family. However, when he heard that the rumors were getting more and more ridiculous for some reason, he still said, Second Miss Yen is pitiful enough. Don't ruin her reputation anymore. Have some respect. Gu Yundong could tell that this concubine's daughter had a hard time in the Yen family. As for how she married her current husband, there might be an inside story. Just as he was thinking, another carriage suddenly stopped outside the Yen residence. Someone alighted from the carriage and was helped into the side door by a maidservant. The tea shop immediately became lively. Isn't that the second daughter of the Yen family? Yes. It's the second daughter of the Yen family. Didn't everybody say that she hadn't returned to her mother's house for a long time? Why is she back today? Her mother is still in the Yen family. How can she never come back? I don't see her husband. Gu Yundong was sitting far away, so she could only see the side of the woman's face, which was delicate and pleasant-looking, but she looked a little weak. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1332. Something happened to the Yen residents. The customers in the shop began to discuss again. However, perhaps because of what the shop owner had said just now, the discussion about second Miss Yen slowly stopped and they began to talk about other things in the Yen family. Gu Yundong pricked up her ears and listened. She accepted some information, and was also speechless when she heard about the privacy of some servants. However, it was said that Yen Yihai's wife was shrewish and a little greedy. As for Yen Yihai, one of them often played the good cop and the other played the bad cop. In the end, Yen Yihai's reputation as a smooth, capable, and easy-to-talk-to businessman was created. Gu Yundong smiled and shook her head. There were so many things to do in this rich family, and they seemed a little complicated. She listened with interest, but the door of the Yen residence had not been opened since second Miss Yen entered. It was not until noon that the side door suddenly opened and a servant from the Yen residence rushed out. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and watched the servant run away in a panic. After an unknown period of time, the servant returned anxiously with another person. When Gu Yundong saw that person, she suddenly stood up and craned her neck to look over. Imperial Physician Chui? That servant actually called Imperial Physician Chui over. Not only that, but that servant was also carrying Imperial Physician Cui's medicine box on his shoulder. Something happened to the Yen residents? Gu Yundong scratched her ears and cheeks. She wanted to know what was going on inside, but she could not get in. What a headache. Not only her, but other guests also saw this scene and could not help but ask curiously, what happened to the Yen family? That's Imperial Physician Chui, right? Someone stood up. Hee, I'll ask around. Gu Yundong looked at that person with a burning gaze, and that person quickly left. Gu Yundong was still sitting there, waiting for them to come back. Unfortunately, it was as if this person was gone. After a long time, he did not appear. 2 hours later, the door of the Yen residence opened again, and 2 people came out. Gu Yundong took a closer look. Wasn't this Imperial Physician Chui and Chui Lan? They were sent out by the butler of the Yen residence. The butler's expression was very strange. Although he seemed respectful, there was a hint of anger. However, in the face of Imperial Physician Chui, he still looked considerate and cupped his hands to bid them farewell. Both father and daughter did not look too good. Chui Lan's eyes were red. She gritted her teeth and was called by Imperial Physician Chui twice before getting into the carriage. Gu Yundong tapped her fingers on the table and watched as their carriage went further and further away. Only then did the butler of the Yen residence snort coldly. With a flick of his sleeve, he strode back to the residence. This scene confused everyone. At this moment, the customer who had said that he was going to investigate returned with an excited smile on his face. As soon as he sat down, someone asked him, "How was it? What happened to the Yen residence? Why were you gone for so long?" That person held the tea bowl and drank a big bowl of water. Then, he wiped his mouth and said, "Sai, do you think it's so easy to find out about the Yen residence? I have to find my brother first. My brother looks for his brother. His brother still has to find his lover, who looks for her sister who has a lover, and then..." All right. Hurry up and tell us what happened." Someone interrupted him and urged him impatiently. Only then was that person satisfied. He chuckled and said, "You will never imagine how bold that girl from Imperial Physician Cui's family is. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1333. This move is wonderful. How serious? That person said mysteriously, "Miss Chui sent an invitation to the Yen residence to visit the eldest daughter of the Yen residence." Not far away, the tea shop owner was also listening attentively, but when he heard this, he felt a little strange. When did this Miss Chui become so close to Miss Yen? He had opened a tea shop here for so many years, but he had never heard of Miss Yen and Miss Chui having a relationship. Only Gu Yundong and the others knew about these problems. She said that she was visiting Miss Yen, But wasn't she actually going for by Muzi? The gossiper continued. Isn't it a coincidence today? Didn't second Miss Yen also return to her maiden home just now? She heard that Miss Chui was here. Shouldn't they meet and talk? Who knew that Miss Chui would suddenly go crazy for some reason? She suddenly smashed second Miss Yan's head when no one was around and knocked second Miss Yen unconscious. What? Everyone was stunned when they heard that. Someone quickly asked, could it be that Miss Chui couldn't stand second Miss Yen snatching her sister's husband to avenge Miss Yen? Didn't they say that they were friends? That I don't know. That person took another sip of tea before continuing. However, after second Miss Yen was knocked unconscious, the Yen family immediately went to find Imperial Physician Chui to save her. Is second Miss Yen all right? How is she fine? Even Imperial Physician Chui said that it's especially serious. So what should we do? What could he do? Of course he had to save her. However, I heard that second Miss Yan's injury can only be treated with a very precious medicine. What's it called? Bai Mu? I don't remember very clearly. Anyway, I heard that Master Yen gave this medicine to second Miss Yen. His heart ached. What else did Gu Yundong not understand? She looked at Tong Shuitao, whose eyes were wide open. Then, she threw down the silver and left with her. Miss is what the Yen family did what I think it is. What do you think? Gu Yundong smiled. She knew it. How could second Master Yen bear to use good medicinal herbs to pay a nephew who was not close to him? This was a brilliant move. He would wait for Chui Lan to come to his door and call his concubine's daughter, who was not doted on much, home. He would let Chui Lan personally smash her head and find Imperial Physician Chui to diagnose her. Imperial Physician Chui said that Bai Muzi had to be used to save her, and the Yen family happened to have such a Bai Muzi that they wanted to give to the Chui family. Imperial Physician Chui had no other choice. It was Chui Lan who smashed the person. Could it be that he wanted his daughter to become a murderer? Therefore, Chui Lan could not take Bai Muzi away. She could only give it to the second daughter of the Yen family. However, Bai Muzi would definitely not be used. Otherwise, why would Yen Yihai spend so much effort? As for how the Yen family operated, how to get Chui Lan to do it, how to ensure that second Miss Yen had to use Bai Muzi to save her life, and how to deceive Imperial Physician Chui, only the Yen family knew. Among them, the most innocent person was probably that second Miss Yen. She had not been back to her parents' house for a long time. She did not expect such a big show to be waiting for her the moment she returned. Gu Yundong sighed secretly and walked home. It was already so late, so she could only go to the shop tomorrow. From the looks of it, she indeed had to think of ways to get this Bai Muzi from the Yen family. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1334. Who said that the shop was rented? Gu Yundong and Tong Shuitao did not know that not long after they left, another horse came to the entrance of the Yen residence. A man got off the horse and threw the reins to the servant guarding the door. Then, he rushed into the residence to see second Miss Yen. Shao Qingyuan had yet to return when Gu Yundong and his wife returned home. It was not until half an hour later that Shao Wen hurriedly entered the house. Where's brother Shao? Gu Yundong asked curiously. Shao Wen said, young master can't come back tonight. He was pulled by Imperial Physician Song to talk at the Imperial Hospital. It seems like he can't leave. So, he asked me to come back and tell Madam not to wait. Gu Yundong pursed his lips. Could Song Dajiang understand the ways of the world? Wouldn't he feel guilty for dragging someone else's husband to spend the night? Even so, Gu Yundong still tidied herself up and went to bed early. She wanted to discuss the Yen family with Shao Qingyuan when he returned. There was also the matter of brother Shao looking for his parents. The last information he received from Tao Yen was about the Ho mansion. However, such insider information about noble families was not something that Gu Yundong could find out by sending Tong Shuitao to inquire. Therefore, she wanted to ask Song Dajiang or Qin Wenjing for help. Now, she had to open the shop first. Thus, early the next morning, Gu Yundong still brought Tong Shuitao to the shop. The shop Nie Shuang bought was not far from Hatai Alley. It was in a relatively prosperous area and was said to be very big. Gu Yundong followed the address and was very satisfied with the streets she passed. Not bad. This area did not look cheap. The families living nearby were all rich. It was obvious that they had money and time. It was indeed a suitable place to open a milk tea shop. As Gu Yundong thought, she stopped in front of a two-story shop. "Miss, this is it." Tong Shuitao also looked at the shop in front of her with bright eyes. The capital was indeed the capital. Even the shop was bigger than the Xuanhe prefectures. They were both 2 stories, but the shop in front of them looked a little taller and much more imposing. "Let's go and take a look." The 2 of them walked forward. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, they frowned at the same time. "How did the door open?" Tong Shuitao asked curiously and stepped out to take a closer look. The 2 doors that opened were indeed from this shop. Gu Yundong thought of what Nie Shuang had said. Maybe the shopkeeper came to clean. She remembered that Nie Shuang had said that she had left a key to this shop for Nie Tsong, who was still in the capital. She had asked Nie Tsong to get someone to help clean the shop from time to time, lest too much dust accumulated and the shop became dilapidated. Tong Shuitao nodded. The 2 of them continued forward and walked in through the 2 open doors. However, just as she reached the door, she heard a high-pitched voice coming from inside. "How is it? Isn't this shop good? Not only is this place spacious, but there's also a second floor and a courtyard at the back. Most importantly, the location is good. Most of the people coming and going are rich. If you rent this shop and do any business, you definitely won't lose out." His voice was a little rough, but the meaning behind his words made Gu Yundong frown. "Rent? You want to rent this shop? Who said you could rent it, and who agreed?" "Miss, what's going on? Why do I feel that something is wrong?" Gu Yundong pursed her lips and took out the note Nie Shuang had written for her. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible.